All right, we're going to call the meeting to order for tonight. Let's go ahead and start off with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Mr. Odell.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
O God, source of all wisdom and strength, you have entrusted us with the duty to serve others. Grant us the grace to do so with clarity, courage, and peace. Holy Spirit, guide our thoughts and words. Bless all those present. We place this meeting in your hands, trusting in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes.
Here.
Commissioner Neese.
Here, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell.
Here, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley.
Here, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler.
Here.
Chair Benner.
Here. All right, and we have quorum. As for announcements, we're going to move items 9E and 9F regarding the Fort Pierce Commerce Center to the beginning because there's a requested continuance. Any other announcements?
Disclosure.
Yep. Any disclosures? Since we
I have a disclosure. I will be recused from discussion and voting on items C and D.
And D. Any other disclosures from anybody? All right. Seeing none. Do we have approval of the minutes from the July 17th meeting? Do you have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second? Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Who's the second?
Second was Neese.
Neese. Thank you. Commissioner Lowndes.
Yes.
Commissioner Neese.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Commissioner Gettler.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner.
Yes, ma'am. All right, this is a public hearing. At this time, we will open it up for public comment. This is for general public comment that is not directly related to anything on the agenda tonight. If you have any general public comment directed towards the board, now would be your time to come on up to the mic. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and start our public hearings. We will open with 9E with the requested continuance.
Good evening, Chair Benner, members of the Commission, Corey Benton, Planning and Zoning Manager. Agenda item 9E, which is the Fort Pierce Commerce Center request for a future land use map amendment that was previously continued from both the June and July meetings, was intended to be continued this evening. The applicant's representatives have requested that this body afford an additional continuance to the regularly scheduled meeting in September to pick things up. We did have a productive meeting, or at least in my opinion it was productive, between the applicant's representatives and an adjacent property owner pertaining to a historic easement and potentially a replacement easement that would directly relate to the proposed land use amendment. And then agenda item 9F, the planned non-residential development rezoning proposal. They're requesting that this body would continue public hearings for both of those items to a date certain. That would be the September 25th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, noting that it's on the 25th to accommodate some of the budget hearings and other scheduling. So it's actually the 4th Thursday of September.
Okay. All right. So at this time, we'll open, it's still a public hearing, so if there's any member of the public that would wish to address the board on item 9E, now would be your chance. Come on down. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and come back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Odell.
move that this item be moved to the September 25th meeting.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Odell, second by Mr. Gettler. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Neese.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner.
Yes, ma'am. All right, motion to continue carries. And then now we will open up 9F. Same thing, asking to continue to the 25th. This is a public hearing. If there's any member of the public would like to address the board on 9F, now's your chance. Seeing none, we will close public comment, come back to the board, and do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Odell?
I motion that we move this item to the September 25th meeting.
All right, in a second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Odell, second by Mr. Lowndes. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Neese,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner.
Yes, ma'am. All right, next up, agenda item 9A, Land Development Code, Building Regulations.
All right. Thanks for joining us again, Chair Benner and Commissioners. For the record, Ben Balser, Planning and Development Services Director. I'm joined up here with Michael Jerahan. He is our county building official. And tonight he's going to go over a county-initiated Land Development Code text amendment. This looks to establish milestone inspection guidelines. This is one of those legislative mandates that came out of Tallahassee this past legislative session. It's something that the county is required to do. This public hearing was properly noticed in the St. Lucie News Tribune on Friday, August 8th. And this is the general purpose of the proposal, but I'm going to turn it over to Mike over here to kind of explain what milestone inspections are and recent legislative changes for condo and co-op buildings in Florida.
Good evening, Chair and member of the Commission. So up here's the actual text, but I'm going to put some context behind it. Back in May of 2022, there was legislation passed through Senate Bill 4D that required the milestone inspections for any condos and co-ops that are 3 stories or more. There have been a lot of legislative changes for it. It was in response to the collapse of the Champlain South Towers down in Surfside, Miami. One of those changes that recently happened is they added language where the local jurisdictions have to actually adopt a timeline for repairs to take place after the county receives a Phase 2 inspection that identifies substantial structural deterioration of the structures. It cannot exceed 365 days. What we're looking to cap at is 180 days. It's a pretty standard time frame within the Florida Building Code for many other actions, and it should be enough time for these condos and co-ops to get everything together and commence those repairs and also maintain safety of those structures within that time frame. And so what we're looking for is recommendation for approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
With that, we're open for any questions.
All right, anybody from the board have questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
staff, on this one, you did not mention any financial impact. I know that some of these repairs can be in the millions, which have to be amortized over the amount of the condo owners. What happens if there's a shortfall and they can't raise enough money to have the repairs done in time?
There's always opportunity for them to request extensions. If they are working on something, that kind of ties into a bigger picture where there's structural integrity reserve studies that are due, and they actually have requirements to send those reserve studies to the state condominium board. And so typically it would fall within those reserve studies unless it's something completely off guard, and that would be up for the associations to figure out. And as said, they do have the opportunity to request those extensions.
Thank you.
Mr. Lund?
Mr. Belser, does the state or does the county initiate the first inspection on these buildings?
Chair Benner, Commissioner Lowndes, whenever the state legislature adopted the original milestone inspection statutes in law, they developed certain criteria. Let's say when a building gets 30 years of age after a certificate of occupancy, that's when the first milestone inspection kicks in, if it's applicable, and they have to submit it. If you're within 3 miles from the coastline, that 30 years is diminished down to 25 years, right, MJ?
Correct.
So it comes a little closer if you're in that salt environment where things deteriorate a little bit faster. So the state statute actually mandates when those Phase 1 milestone inspections come in. Those are generally more of your visual structural inspections. They have an architect or an engineer go out, look for spalling of concrete and different deterioration of the structure. If they find that those structures are deteriorated at such a point where they need to go in and do exploratory inspections, take off concrete, look at the rebar, that sort of thing, then the architect or engineer will let the county know that a Phase 2 milestone inspection is warranted. Whenever the Phase 2 comes in, that's when this new state law kicks in and says if you have structural repairs that need to be made, you have 180 days from the time you submit that Phase 2 milestone inspection report to when you have to initiate those repairs.
So the
Basically,
initial inspection is done by the condo association itself?
they pay a design professional, an architect or a engineer, structural engineer, to do those inspections for them.
Then the county goes out after that inspection is made aware to the county?
No, sir. So when that initial inspection is made by the design professional, if they don't find what the state defines as substantial structural deterioration, then it would pass Phase 1 and they wouldn't be due for their next inspection until 10 years. So it's 30 years of the structure age and then every 10 years thereafter, or 25 within that 3-mile coast. If there is substantial structural deterioration found, then a Phase 2 would be required, and that's where the design professional will come in with destructive and exploratory inspections, and that's where they'll dig a little bit deeper, so to speak, to see to what extent is it substantially deteriorating.
And that's when the county gets involved?
Right, they'll submit that Phase 2 to us to say, okay, we've looked further, these are the repairs that are required to rectify whatever that substantial deterioration is, and then that's when that 180 days kicks in for them to go ahead and take care of those recommended repairs.
Then it's up to the county to enforce that inspection and the
Correct.
repairs and such having, and follow up with that? Or does the state do that for us?
No, we would follow up. We would follow up with that. So part of those legislative changes that have taken place since Senate Bill 4D was signed, they added an extra chapter into the Florida Building Code existing building that addresses violations if they don't address any of the repairs and don't follow up with the reports that they're supposed to be getting. And there's progress report requirements and things of that nature that they're required to follow up with, and that falls on the county to enforce.
And then the association or the condominium group pays the state or the county for that inspection and all the work thereafter?
There are submittal fees required when they submit the reports to us, but if there's anything as far as like the work, it would just go through the typical permitting process, which includes fees and such, according to our fee schedule that's posted at the time.
So many state mandates and federal mandates are gotcha for the counties.
Essentially.
I'd like to see us not have a gotcha on this one.
And these are, it's scheduled or commence within 180 days. So it could take a year to do the project, but you've got to be scheduled and started within 180 days, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for staff? All right, this is a public hearing. If any member of the public would like to address the board on this agenda item, come on down. I guess you guys are going to keep us waiting for another one. All right, that closes the public hearing. Come back to the board for a motion. Mr. Lowndes.
I move to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lowndes, second by Neese. Mrs. Secretary, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Neese?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner?
Yes, ma'am. All
Thank
right,
you very much.
Now on to 9B.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. 9B, Dickerson Infrastructure. Petition to rezone, and this is quasi-judicial.
Good evening, Chair Benner, members of the commission. If I may introduce Planner 2 with our team. Don Aronelli.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm Don Ariano.
You only got to worry about the old guy down there at the end.
All right. So for the record, my name is Don Ariano, Planner 2 with Planning and Development Services Department. For this project, the applicant is proposing to amend the zoning atlas from commercial office and industrial extraction to industrial light. Public notice has been provided in the form of a single-sided sign posted along the eastern North 25th Street right-of-way, and an ad has been published in the Tribune. An informational mailer has been sent to neighbors within 500 feet from the boundary of the property. The 43.59 acre property is located on the east side of North 25th Street, approximately 1/5 of a mile north of St. Lucie Boulevard. San Lucie Plaza Subdivision Unit 1 is directly to the south with right-of-way to the east and west of the property. The property is within the urban services boundary and the airport overlay. The existing future land use is IND Industrial. Properties immediately surrounding include dedicated right-of-way, an established floodway to the west, and land use designated with the future land use CPUB or Conservation Public to the north. Beyond the immediate properties, land uses also include the RM residential medium just to the south of the subject site, PF public facilities, and IND Industrial to the west of North 25th Street. The current zoning for the 43.59 acre parcel is IX and CO, industrial extraction and commercial office. The surrounding properties have IL, industrial light, and institutional zoning, except for the residential neighborhood directly to the south that is zoned RS4 for residential suburban. The proposed zoning is light industrial. And the proposed zoning, the purpose of this district is to provide and protect an environment suitable for light manufacturing, wholesale, warehousing activities that do not impose undesirable noise, vibration, odor, dust, or other offensive effects on the surrounding area, together with such other uses as may be necessary to be compatible with light industrial surrounding. In addition to any other general standards for change in the zoning as may be described in the county's land development code, the following specific standards shall be utilized for determining suitability of the new property's designation as light industrial under the county's land development code. Property has available central water services nearby, and it is not located within 500 feet of any aquatic preserve or other specially designated aquatic habitat or Category 1 wetlands. It has immediate access to the transportation network for the region. Development shall not contribute to the degradation of the superficial water quality, which we do not anticipate any adverse effects. As you can see, the established floodway to the west there has been identified within flood zone or special flood hazard area, flood zone AE. And the petition conforms to the standards of review as set forth in section 110603 of the St. Lucie County Land Development Code and is consistent with the St. Lucie County Comprehensive Plan, goals, objectives, and policies. Staff recommends that this petition be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners with a recommendation of approval to amend the zoning on the subject site from CO Commercial Office and IX Industrial Extraction to IL.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Duff?
in looking at the narrative doesn't, there's some conflicting language. It seems that the narrative does not indicate the entire site being rezoned, although the acreage stated in the application details the entire site. Do you have an explanation for that?
So that was noticed at the beginning of the review, and so it's been clarified by the applicant that the intent is to rezone the entire property from CO and IX to industrial light.
Okay, so that's implied.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chair, what's the intention?
There's no project proposed at this moment. The site is just for the purpose of having a single zone district and to move forward to strengthen the industrial tax base.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, this is a public hearing. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the board on this agenda item, now's your chance. And we're going to keep waiting. All right. See nobody from the public, we'll close public comment. We'll come back to the board for discussion and or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Gettler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Bradley. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Neese,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner.
Yes, ma'am. Motion carries. Wasn't too bad. All right. Next up, we got 9C. Brock's Pizzeria. Thad Crow.
No, it's the CUP. Cynthia. Oh.
Bear with us, Mr. Chair. We're
That's no-
searching for the file.
No worries.
So in the meantime, Chairman, members of the commission, we'll pull open a copy of the proposed Land Development Code text amendment, which does propose a modification to the county's commercial neighborhood zoning district to introduce a new conditional use option. This has been petitioned by a private applicant who does own and operate a cafe within the, or a restaurant within the commercial neighborhood district.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to work from the staff report, which is pretty brief, so as not to slow things down. Quickly, the change would be to the CN commercial, I'm sorry, Thad Crow, for the record, senior planner. The change would be to the CN commercial neighborhood zoning district, and the intent would be to add a conditional use. You can see this is what's now permitted in conditional uses that are existing. So we have, for example, there's a conditional use car washes, daycare, retail trade, and many of these items are limit the size of the building in keeping with kind of the low intensity commercial character of CN. For example, hardware stores under 10,000 square feet, auto supply stores also under 10,000 square feet, food stores between 6,000 and 15,000 square feet. Some of you may remember the food store amendment that came through recently. And self-storage facilities. So there's a little bit of history to CN. It's been evolving as a zoning district. In 2017, the CN district was revised to allow for low THC medical marijuana dispensaries. In 2020, the board approved still the self-storage option as a conditional use. In 2022, the auto home supply stores were approved, and in the latest one was 2024, a food store. You may recall the food store that was associated with the Midway Road item. Well, that's magic. Let's do that. Corey can work some miracles sometimes. So, moving on to the criteria by which we consider these, is there a conflict with the comprehensive plan? We do believe the text amendment is consistent with the comp plan. It would provide an opportunity for small businesses within the CN zoning district, in this case restaurants, to expand their operations in terms of menu items, and also service of a wider variety of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with dining can improve quality of life. Restaurants like this serve, not this, but restaurants in the CN district serve neighborhood residents, particularly those who are located within walking distance, which reduces driving. And conditional use permits for non-conforming properties can facilitate LDC code compliance. So what we do is, this is an older property that is kind of pre-code, so we look to bring them into meeting code, especially landscaping and screening and buffering and parking. So a criterion is inconsistent with existing and proposed uses. This is a case-by-case review situation. Each one may be different when it comes before you, so you just have to look at that when the item comes before you. Are there change conditions supporting the amendment? In recent years, the Florida statutes and business regulations have been refined to expand the opportunities for alcohol licensure and service. You may remember the COVID change that allowed for restaurants to essentially allow for to-go alcohol orders in accompaniment with food orders, which is still in place. Is there demand on public facilities? A simple menu change like this, we don't believe we created demand on public facilities. Effect on property values. again, when you look at property values, it's a case-by-case basis. Each case may be different. Is there an orderly, illogical development pattern? And again, the CUP process provides a way to look at both the pros and cons of the development pattern. Conflict with the public interest. I think this is where it's important to hear what the citizens have to say. We do look at how the public is impacted from how we see it and from how the public sees it, and as well as code compliance. And there's other issues that might come up that we don't anticipate. So again, these are case-by-case reviews. Specifically, staff believes this does meet the standards of review. We do recommend you forward a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for approval, and the change, I will read it very quickly. It would add as a conditional use under retail trade, the service of distilled spirits in bona fide restaurants that are less than 4,000 square feet in floor area, with alcohol sales limited to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and with drive-through lanes prohibited. Pickup windows are allowed. And Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions? Mr. Lowndes.
Mr. Crowe, what's the difference between a drive-through lane and a pickup window?
A drive-through is literally a lane that goes around the restaurant where people wait at the windows in their cars. A pickup window is a walk-up window, essentially.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Benton, can you magically show us where this place is? I don't recall the location of it.
Chair Benner, Commissioner Lowndes, the text amendment that's currently before you would be applicable to the entire commercial neighborhood zoning district.
Okay.
And so there's scattered regions of the county. Some highlights are areas like Turnpike Feeder Road, South Hutchinson Island. There's areas, portions along maybe 25th Street, Midway Road, where the commercial neighborhood exists. On a case-by-case basis, a conditional use could be filed under this ordinance that would allow for a public hearing, neighborhood meeting, notice, you name it, to allow evaluation of specifics, but it would have to adhere to these baseline standards, limiting size of the restaurant cafe in which the alcohol sales and service were to be proposed, hours of operation to avoid it becoming a standalone bar. And then, Commissioner, you may recall that we also have provisions in our land development code that exist now pertaining to waivers of distance for alcohol purposes, where there's minimum criteria if an alcoholic beverage establishment is in certain proximity to schools, parks, or other facilities like that. So the next agenda item relates to a specific site, and that petition for conditional use, but this text amendment would allow
Covers
for
the entire
option.
county.
That is correct.
Thank
For
you.
commercial neighborhood, yes.
I have a quick question. So the limiting the distilled spirits alcohol sales from 7 to 10, but they can do beer and wine outside of that?
This one, the language you see specifically pertains to essentially distilled spirits. Should they decide they wanted to stay open later, which they now close at 10, but should they decide they want to stay open later, they could continue their activities, with the exception they would not be able to serve distilled spirits.
And if this applied to a different restaurant than the one that's coming up next, how do you police them stopping it at 10? Would it be better to put in there that the hours of service can't be past 10 p.m. so you don't have, oh, well, I can get a rum and coke at 9:59 and like who's gonna, but they're open till 1 in the morning. You say you don't want it to make it a standalone bar.
Yes.
It's made for food establishments. Most like normal restaurants or small restaurants, I don't think would be open till midnight and 1, but it's one of those things where like are you creating a gray area that can easily be abused, or just maybe state that the restaurant hours that apply for this CN special condition, operating hours have to end at 10, not just liquor sales.
Chair Benner, members of the commission, I think this body has the ability to suggest specific language that might tighten that. with the conditional use process, we would handle on a case-by-case basis based upon that particular business's operation. And of course, the primary criteria is that they are a bona fide restaurant, they're serving meals the entire time that alcohol beverage sales are commencing. That would allow for consideration of size, seating capacity, hours of operation for both the restaurant and alcohol sales. And it's likely that we would anticipate that those would be in sync. But in theory, you could have a scenario in which they cut alcohol sales at 10 o'clock and maybe they have delivery pizza or delivery Chinese food until 11 or 12 o'clock. And so that criteria and compliance would correlate with the county code enforcement, which does operate on the evenings and weekends, or at least is on call, as well as coordination with the sheriff's office. And even when we're signing off on the alcohol licensure, we have the ability to put notes and conditions, at least in our sign-off fields.
And if they're found violating it, it would immediately get pulled or just not be renewed and allowed to finish out the year?
The process for conditional use violations, where there's facts and observations of clear-cut non-compliance, staff schedules a public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners for the board to evaluate and hear those facts and consider revocation or other alternatives for that conditional use.
And they could vote for the immediate revocation of that conditional use, or would they still be allowed to finish out, say, like that year or whatever they have left on it?
I think the board has, upon a finding of fact that there's clear violations and there's going to be continuous violations, not being able to pull back within the confines of the conditional use, they would have the latitude to revoke the conditional use.
Chair.
Mr. Brad?
Where's the 4,000 square feet come from? What if they're 5,000? Then all this.
Commissioner Bradley, so in a commercial neighborhood district, we have different tiers and square footages, and some of the intent behind that is to ensure that the scale is limited and compatible with that transitional area where it's intended to serve close by residents and nearby activities, but not be a regional destination like you would see for larger restaurants. And so it also it's intended to fill a niche, to not have, I don't want to pull out a national restaurant too much, but let's take a Darden brand restaurant. Usually they're in excess of 4,000 square feet. Their parking lots are accommodating 80 vehicles, and it's a much broader attraction. And so the intention behind these parameters is to ensure that it still fits and is compatible with the neighborhood commercial area. And we see that with limitations on certain retail uses, not greater than 6,000 square feet. That's the goal
So
behind
under
it.
this, basically a restaurant can't be more than 4,000 square foot.
To be eligible for this conditional use to pursue liquor sales.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
What about proximity to a freestanding home? Is there any distance requirements that we can put into play, like 150, 200 feet or something?
Commissioner Neese, you certainly would have the ability as a body to offer any particular recommendations. Currently, there's nothing in the Land Development Code or as proposed by the applicant this evening that would have those separation standards. Through the conditional use process, that can be considered as to any adverse effects on adjacent properties, given proximity, given line of sight, any prevention or mitigation mechanisms such as walls, landscaping, fences, road rights of way, where reasonable conditions can be applied by the Board of County Commissioners on recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission to try to minimize those impacts. I'm often reminded of a request in the city of Fort Pierce, Archie Seabreeze, where it's tucked in a transitioning area surrounded by residential activities, and there was a lot of time and attention into buffering, access provisions, landscaping, and I think you'll hear tonight during the conditional use evaluation some of that consideration. And with any conditional use, we're looking at how the proposal would be compatible with the surrounding area, and looking at specific operational and design limitations.
All right. That's it for staff. This is a public hearing. If any member of the public wishes to address the board on the land development code change portion, come on up to the mic.
Chair Benner, as a note, the applicant's representative does have a presentation, if you'd like to take that first.
All right, let's do the applicant's presentation first, and then we'll do public. You the applicant? You can.
I'm not the applicant.
Okay, we're gonna do, the applicant has a presentation I didn't know about.
Got it.
So we're gonna let them do it, then we'll do the public comment. Sorry about that, guys. But we got some movement from the crowd, so that's good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nicholas Giesler, an attorney with Bartlett Loeb, Hines, Thompson, and Angelos on behalf of the applicant, FI Ventures LLC. I do want to introduce the representatives of the property owner, FI Ventures, who is the applicant. We have three of them here today, Ignacio Bueno, William Sanchez, and Buddy Shaw. And we also have our land planner in the back of the room, Dennis Murphy. And we will get into more of the specifics of the site and what is planned on the site in the conditional use portion of the agenda. But I did want to get up and introduce myself, and also, I'm not a detective, but all the evidence is pointing to there's a large amount of the public who's gathered here today to speak on this issue. So I was hoping to alleviate some of their concerns and your concerns. And we did have a public outreach meeting which we think was very productive and answered a lot of the questions from the public on the text amendment and the conditional use permit. What we are seeking through this, and this is through an exhaustive process with county staff prior to proposing both applications, so we're not proposing to change anything on the site. We could have went and did a rezoning, but through staff's recommendation, it was determined that the conditional use process would be best, specifically because it would give the county control over the sites when they come forward for something like this. It's not the applicant's prerogative to try to market itself as a spring break destination or any kind of standalone bar or anything like that. And in fact, they're not even really trying to expand their customer base. They're responding to their current customers. They've been in business for almost 30 years, and those customers have told them they would like the option to have a martini with our pizza if we so choose. So that's what we're attempting to do here. We do think that the text amendment is the way to go because it will give you not only, you don't have to take our word for it that we're not trying to attract spring break customers. The county will have authority to place conditions, and you'll see there are many conditions placed in the conditional use application and then the proposed permit that will enable the county to monitor to ensure that the use is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. So we're here today, and we're here to answer any questions you may have, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right. So now is the time for public comment. We'll go ahead and open it up to the public. If you're going to address the board on this item, you'll come up to the mic, state your name and address for the record so the secretary can have it, and that's it. And make sure all comments are directed at the board, not at the applicants in the back. Everything is on to
You want to explain this is about the amendment, not about the site?
Yeah, this is just the text amendment. So it has nothing to do with the site. This is a county-wide text amendment. The site will come next.
Hey folks, how you doing? My name's Bill Sullivan, 69 South Las Olas, Jensen Beach. We live in Beach Club Colony, and it is the neighborhood directly that backs up to the restaurant backs up to our residential neighborhood. Quite a few of the neighbors received a letter in the mail where they could oppose or agree with it. I don't believe everybody received that letter. Myself, I didn't get one. So there was a petition letter that went around to a lot of the neighbors. I have a copy of that here that we can submit when I'm done. And then I took a few minutes and just wrote some notes down, being in the neighborhood for about 4 or 5 years now, I guess, just things that I've noticed and things that I think will impact us in the future. So I'll take a few minutes and read it to us. So I came here tonight, I wrote the letter to express my concerns regarding the proposed ordinance change scheduled for consideration. While I understand the desire for progress and development, I believe that this specific change will have a detrimental impact on our community and the value of our homes. Right? Beach Club Colony on the ocean has thrived due to its careful planning, community standards, and overall quality of life it provides. The proposed ordinance threatens to compromise these desirable qualities, which in turn may lead to decreased property values and a decline in community cohesion. Additionally, the potential increase in density, alterations to zoning could result in challenges related to traffic, parking, noise, maintaining the character of our neighborhood, etc. Our streets are extremely narrow now. Parking has been restricted over the years with no parking signs. But what I've noticed in the past 6 months, there's about 3 or 4 of them that have been missing. So many families, elderly, from closer developments actually use the streets as a safe area to get their exercise and play in there. Right? With the added traffic, I feel everybody's going to be in danger. We feel all business activities should be done on the commercial side of Brock's Pizza, facing A1A. And like I said, right now, our neighborhood is Brock's Pizza is in the rear of our neighborhood. So there's many things that go on back there that should be in the front, right? Not in the residential neighborhood. So this includes a break room, smoking area, parking, trash removal, maintaining delivery portions of the business, right? So the added traffic has made our streets less desirable and less safe. The trash is a nuisance and leaves the odor in the community on a consistent basis. The parking of cars on the backside and the constant speeding from the delivery service is a nuisance. We also feel any music must be maintained to the inside of the business and finished no later than 8 p.m. I kindly urge the council to consider the people of Beach Club Colony, their lifestyle, their investment in the community, their safety, and the families before granting any change. I am certain that we can explore alternative solutions that can support growth while preserving the integrity and appeal of our community.
Thank you very much.
I can submit a copy if you'd like.
Anything you'd like to submit, you can hand to the secretary. Anybody else that would like to address the board on the land development text code? Remember, this is a text code that affects the county. It has nothing to do with the site on the next item. If it's site-specific comments, wait till the next item on those. This is if you have a problem with any 4,000 square foot or less restaurant possibly applying for a liquor use, that's what this one's about. If it's about the land development code countywide, yes. If it's about the pizzeria, wait till the next item. Yep. Oh, you can skip there.
Bob Doyle. I live at 128 North Las Olas Drive. You can hear me?
Yep. You're live.
Bob Doyle, 128 North Las Olas Drive. It's been a long time since I've been here. Last time I was here, there were all different faces except for the lady that isn't here today. She's the only one with us here. All I can tell you is I've been in St. Lucie County since 1979. I've been a property owner in Beach Club Colony in 1983. So I was there before Brock's and all that. When it was converted from a duplex to a commercial business, George and Vera had a limousine service and real estate sales. And they met with Bob Brockway. And he decided that he would take half of that building and create a business with it. They opened it up. It was beer and wine, sandwiches in the original building there. And then later on through the years, the business had picked up, slowed down, slowed down. Vera had her whole family running the place. We started having troubles when what I call the 7-Eleven next door, Sam put the fence up between his property, the 7-Eleven, and Brock's Pizza. So that eliminated almost half of their parking. As they say, 10 parking spots were eliminated. They couldn't use that. They only had them in front. So that created tremendous traffic in our community, private community. This was before they had outside service of liquor, alcohol, beer and wine. We got with the county, and they got Art Zeckman to come out and put the car counter across the road to show that the business is creating the surplus of traffic in our community. And with that, it showed that on Mondays and Thursdays, we had a tremendous increase in traffic driving through our community, which is one way in, one way out. And that's when they happen to have their $6 pizza specials on those days. So, as far as alcohol concerned, I don't have an opinion either way on the alcohol. It's not the what, it's the how they're doing it. I was always led to believe, and when Sam had if he still owns the 7-Eleven, he had a,
That's the timer on this one. Do you want to come up on the next item and finish? Because it seems it's a lot about the pizza. So we're on the next agenda item will be specific to the pizza, and you can.
Well,
come up
I'm
and
not
finish.
talking about pizza, I'm just talking about.
But that specific location, because what we're voting on is just changing
Okay,
the code
I'm
for
sorry.
countywide. It would the next one there, it's going to be more about parking, conditional use.
Just let me know.
Well, you got it. All right. Anybody else just about the text amendment?
My name is Lisa Mooney, and my address is 95 South Las Olas Drive in Beach Club Colony. And my husband and I live directly behind the current location or the restaurant that was mentioned. You mentioned some of the changes and that were approved and or considered with regards to this change in zoning. I would be curious to know too what were the feet from those locations to the front door of the residence or the residential area. We're about 50 feet from this particular building and the buildings in front. And we've experienced some changes too, but my concern is that if this ordinance gets changed, then it would lead to additional changes and in coming before the commission and requesting additional, such as liquor license, different things. Right now, there's no landscaping. There's no, you can now see our home from the ocean. The fence came down. I mean, we experienced traffic. I know you mentioned that, if it's community, people walk there. No, the majority of the people that come to that restaurant drive there and park, and there's no parking. People park in front of us today, right in front of our home. We watch the cars go up and down the street. So, we are a community. We bought in there 5 years ago for our retirement home. We're living there now full time. But why? The restaurant, when we knew the commercial was right across the street, we were okay with it. It was quiet. There was a building there. The hours were 3 to 9. By 9 o'clock, everybody's gone. Now or 4 to 9. Now the hours are 3 to 10. Traffic. The real estate office is leasing their field that they own for parking. There's still not enough parking during season. So the proximity of that location and what you're trying to do in comparison or close to the proximity of the residents in the neighborhood directly behind, to me, will be detrimental to our community, our prices, and future requests. Once you do one in zoning, now it opens up the door for more or potential requests from those businesses should you change the ordinance. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Same place, same house. I know this is about the countywide. I guess my
Can
concern.
you just say the name and address
Yeah,
again?
it's Tom
You got it.
Mooney, 95 South Los Olas Drive. My question, I know we're going to talk about specifics of Brock's on the next piece, but my concern is that you're kind of doing these out of order. Like if you guys pass this ordinance, it's been passed, and now we have to go one by one, and I wonder how many other places in St. Lucie County are going to be facing the same exact issue. And I think some of the details were brought up about our concern, and I'm not sure there's enough specifics around this change to that you guys can vote on without having distance from the houses, the noise, the parking, all those things. I didn't hear any of that being addressed in this general overall change that you want to make. And so I would ask that you guys consider a lot of these things that you've heard. We can specifically talk about Brock's next, but I think you're out of order. The sequences, you need to hear what all the things are that we're talking about with Brock's, and I'm sure there are many other places in St. Lucie County that are going to have the same issue. And if you pass it, now we're going to have one by one come up here and plead their case. That was my request.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing none, we will close public comment and come back to the board. Just wanted to, if staff can clarify one thing. By adding this to the list of conditional uses just means somebody can apply to it. It doesn't set, just because they applied, they're not guaranteed it. And you guys, at that point, the concerns that were brought up about distance, noise, hours of operations, that's what can be done with the conditional use, or they could just be denied the conditional use, correct?
Chair Benner, members of the commission, that is correct, that the Land Development Code text amendment before you would simply assign eligibility to pursue this use as a conditional use application within the commercial neighborhood district, or by default, it links to a future planned non-residential development request. That would require evaluation on a case-by-case basis of staff, review and consideration of that particular restaurant's current and or proposed improvements to comply with the county's land development code for parking, access, buffering, landscaping, the additional considerations for size, scale, intensity, hours of operation, the scope or type of restaurant for that matter, what it's adjacent to, how close it is to residential, if it's along a state roadway or has access via a side road or a collector, a more local road for that matter, and so that would work through a public hearing process and then have a public hearing for a site by site basis.
All right. And then real quick, if like regular restaurants, like a bigger restaurant with liquor, are there setbacks on those from residential addresses?
There are not setbacks or separations from residential addresses. We do have, when you're pursuing an alcohol license, there's two measurements, but one of the rules of thumb is 1,600 feet from a park or a school, or 1,000 feet via a bird's flight. If you're within that region or that separation standard, you can petition a waiver for the alcohol sales. Most recently, I think Islamorada Brewery and now Distillery was before this, before the Board of County Commissioners at least, because there's a church to the east of them on St. Lucie Boulevard. Simply an example. Then, what we have in the commercial general district is if it's a restaurant that has alcohol sales, including liquor and spirits, accessory to their operation, what we typically call or refer at the state level as a special restaurant license or an SRX, where they're deriving at least 50% of their revenue from food sales. It doesn't require, and if they're serving food throughout the duration and when alcohol sales commence, that's a permitted by right use in the commercial general district. In the commercial general district, you can pursue a drinking establishment as a conditional use, and we've had those before this body for a recommendation. Those options in the commercial neighborhood do not exist. You're limited to beer and wine sales accessory to the cafe or restaurant, and this would allow for them to pursue on a case-by-case conditional use basis the ability to add spirits to the beer wine option.
And if you add conditions, say to address parking or landscaping or fencing, things like that, and they're not adhered to, the person that applied for the conditional use could face it being pulled if they don't apply to all those conditions.
So, Chair Benner, the ordinance itself, as we have some of those size and operational criteria on the forefront, if the policymakers were compelled to add additional prerequisites where in order to even be eligible, you needed to have a parcel size of X, or you can only be single story, or there's absolutely no amplified music external to the property, no outdoor seating, no walk-up windows. Those are types of refinements to this text amendment that could be offered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That said, should it be adopted in one shape or form, if someone's seeking to petition a conditional use, first level of staff review is, are they eligible? Do they have the commercial neighborhood zoning? Do they have a bona fide restaurant? Can they meet these dimensional or operational standards? Then we start reviewing for the standard code requirements that apply to new or all businesses in the county. In this instance, the next item pertains to a business that's been well established for multiple decades. Over decades, codes change. Typically during a conditional use process, staff is evaluating the proposal to today's code, the Institute of Transportation Engineers parking demand ratios. We're looking at their overall compliance, and we're reporting through our agenda packet an opinion as to whether or not they comply. Where there are deficiencies, we're offering recommendations on ways to bring it into code compliance, whether that's installation of new landscaping, refinement to their access, maybe certain prohibitions where employees can park versus where customers can park, things like prohibition of amplified music external to the property or even potentially internal. Those hours of operation, whether they're tighter than the 7 to 10. In the instance of the conditional use this evening, I understand they operate 3 to 10. So there's different considerations that staff's evaluating under the current code. We're presenting that through the public hearing process, and the Board of County Commissioners can apply reasonable conditions in their action to either grant with conditions, or deny a conditional use permit.
Mr. Lowndes.
Mr. Crow, Mr. Benton, if a current standalone sandwich shop or deli or pizza place is now serving beer and wine, in order for them to go to selling spirits, they would first have to get a liquor license from the state, correct?
I think their options are to, and the state has, again, two categories to be able to sell beer, wine, and spirits. Usually that's a 4 COP quota license, which there's only an allotment of so many, usually based upon a county's population, or the SRX special restaurant license. Years ago, there used to be a criteria of minimum square footage, not a maximum, minimum seating capacity, and again, the revenue standard. That's been refined over years to, I think, support competition and lower those barriers for smaller businesses. But so that they can explore the optional licenses with the state parallel to pursuing a conditional use, but they wouldn't have to secure that license to show up and apply for conditional use. Conditional uses, if they're approved, they're valid for up to 12 months to be able to secure that zoning compliance. Part of the zoning compliance, where they're adding that classification of alcohol sales, there's an alcoholic beverages and tobacco licensure form. Part of that form is approvals from the sales tax office, from the ABT office, from St. Lucie County zoning, and for us to sign off on an application in the commercial neighborhood to have a higher tier alcohol license, they would need to have the conditional use secured. in the event that this ordinance is passed and they proceed.
So assuming that this ordinance passes, they would have to come to us first to get the approval and then apply to the state for the or the spirits license?
That is correct in my anticipated
Okay.
procedure.
Thank you. This comes first and then the license. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bradley?
Put this in really layman's terms. This is just a general 4,000 square foot restaurant that wants to sell liquor. Conditional is where we can put on regulations and barriers and all the fine specifics per the space, correct?
That is correct.
Any
Or
other
deny it.
question? Anything else?
Or recommend that it's disapproved. That's, again, another option.
In this.
For both this or a
Right.
site-specific, depending upon the dynamics of.
Right. What I'm trying to clarify, to make this real easy layman's terms, is while the time frame I see is very general for the whole county, to try to make something specific in this, where it'd be better to make it more specific on the conditional use per the space.
Yes, I think that's why, in the development of what was proposed, the applicant presented specifics, and I think staff offered some refinements, but we didn't want to leave it open-ended. That's why we set a square footage cap, intended to kind of put a ceiling on scale and intensity, and then hours of operation where someone knew full well going into it that they couldn't propose to sell spirits
Right.
until 1 a.m.
Right. And countywide, that makes sense.
All right. Any other discussion, or do we want to entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lowndes?
I move to approve based on staff's recommendations for the request.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lowndes, second by Mr. Gettler. Could we please call the roll?
Commissioner Lowndes?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Neese?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell?
Recused.
Yes. Commissioner Bradley?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass.
All right, so next up is 9D, conditional use for Brock's Pizzeria.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, for the record, again, Thad Crow, Senior Planner. This is a request for conditional use, and we did meet the notice requirements, including a sign on the property, a mailer to property owners within 500 feet, and an ad in the St. Lucie Tribune. You can see from the aerial, in the middle approximately is where Brock's is located. Again, as the resident said, the Beach Club Colony subdivision is to the rear. To the southwest is the Holiday Out subdivision. Across A1A, we have the Oceana South and Hutchinson Island Club condominiums. To the northeast, you see the county park, Waveland Beach. So that kind of orients us as to where we are. It's an interesting mix of uses ranging from mid-high-rise condominiums to single-family homes. And this little commercial node right here you can see, this is the future land use map. The RU is residential urban. It is intended to be a residential category, but as we can talk about a little bit later, it does allow limited non-residential uses. The zoning, you can see the commercial neighborhood zoning, starting with the smoke shop on the south, Brock's, the vacant lot where the building was torn down, and then on the north, the real estate office. So these are small businesses, and this is a neighborhood commercial node located here to serve the neighborhood. So talking about context, this is just a look on the left. On the right-hand side, you can see this is looking from A1A, Ocean Drive. That's at the top, that's the real estate office. On the right, that's Brock's. You see the blue color. And then the smoke shop to the left of that, hidden by Corey's giant yellow arrow. The bottom picture, this is the rear. I think a resident spoke about this. These are residences on Los Olas Drive. On the left, you can see this is the rear of the real estate office. And looking down the street, you can see through the trees kind of Brock's. So, again, looking at the context, this is the picture in the upper left middle. I guess the upper left middle is Brock's looking at it from A1A Ocean Drive. To the right of that is the employee parking. This is an arrangement between the county and the property owner, Brock's, essentially to allow for employee parking in the right-of-way. This is an agreement between the county and the owner that can be essentially ended or modified at some point in time to the county's discretion. Going clockwise, you can see this is the vacant lot to the north. I think it was referred to several, I want to say 7 or so paid parking places and a grassy area. As you can see in this picture, people are parking in that grassy area now. And the lower left central picture is the south side of the building where there's also parking for the restaurant. So some issues that we identify and recognize is Las Olas, there is not much space or room for transition. There are some issues with driveway, right-of-way parking, even though they're not supposed to do it. So there is some spillover into this neighborhood. I think we'll take a look at, there's a fence, part of a missing fence piece in the vacant lot to the north where people can actually drive through that lot and onto Las Olas. So there are some impacts from the restaurant and the commercial uses in general to the street because they are in close proximity. So Brock's essentially opened in 1996, has maximum of 120 seats. They are open from 3 to 10 p.m. daily. At the neighborhood meeting, they did express no intent on changing those hours, no intent of staying open later. And there is a requirement now that restaurants have to derive at least 50% of the revenues from food. According to the applicant, they are now 85% food and 15% beverages. This is the restaurant. The site plan shows it's essentially net usable space is about 2,100 square feet. Gross is 2,860 square feet. You can see in the back that's where the trash is handled. That's essentially some loading delivery activities are taking place there. So there is kind of a back of the house thing going on there. And of course, parking in the front and to the south side and to the north on the vacant lot. The applicant has proposed to put in landscape planters. You can see to the right of the restaurant in the front and to the rear along Las Olas, a landscape island as well with trees and vegetation. And I'll run through this pretty quickly. We've already talked about the uses that are there, the takeout window, the employee parking. Our expert surveys from the Institute for Transportation Engineers indicates that 22 parking spaces are required, 30 spaces are provided. So in terms of our code, they meet the parking requirements. They do have off-site parking to the north, so they would need to provide a cross-access easement for that parking to the north. Also, you can see on the south, those parking places on the south side of the building are on their property, but the drive aisle is not. So technically, they would need a shared parking access easement, cross-access easement with that property owner to the south. Talked about neighborhood commercial and the residential urban future land use map category. So the highlighted language is limited non-residential uses may be appropriate in accordance with applicable standards and restrictions set forth in the Land Development Code. Essentially, we've interpreted that to mean the CN zoning district, a CO, commercial office zoning district. These are intended to be low-intensity neighborhood commercial uses that don't serve a wider market. They serve the neighborhood that surrounds them. Looking at the comprehensive plan, so there are some policies that apply. One you can see here, 1.1.10.2 is let's screen out the visuals and the bright lights for the residences when you have non-residential uses. That can be done through landscaping, fencing, screening, and also just already are some sea turtle lighting controls, so essentially kind of tamping down the bright lights. 1.2.11 encourages development patterns into nodes like this, where there's a concentration of low-intensity commercial uses that serves the neighborhood and the public around it. So when we look at compliance with the Land Development Code, which is our intent with conditional uses, is to, as much as possible, bring that property into compliance with the code, and that this regards access, for example, the width of driveways, parking, sufficient parking, layout as well, landscaping, buffering, screening, and waiver of distance when applicable. Did mention that there are residences impacted by the current use. What happens back there is employee parking, right-of-way parking further to the north on Las Olas, loading of supplies in the rear, delivery in rear. We call them back of house, essentially deliveries of HVAC. So these are impactful at current state. So one thing we are doing is that vacant lot to the north, we're recommending not allowing the grass parking on the grass. And we're also asking them to, if you'll see the bottom central picture with the big red arrow, there's a gap in the fencing that essentially allows cars to enter from A1A onto Las Olas. We want to block that access to prevent the traffic impacts on Las Olas, so continue that fencing across and prevent cars from accessing Las Olas at that point. Enforcing right-of-way parking prohibitions. The only place where the parking is allowed on Las Olas in the right-of-way is to the rear of Brock's. Also, in the lower right-hand corner, that is the corner by Las Olas where you can, it's hard to see, but there's a broken up, busted up wheel stop. Obviously, people are driving through there to Las Olas, so what we want to do is plug those gaps, put a landscape island in here, and prevent the cars from accessing Las Olas. And if you do that, I think you'll see less parking impacts on Las Olas because people won't want to walk all the way around to go all the way around the real estate office. So we did get a lot of good public input on this. Our mailer that went out spurred some emails, concerns about the liquor service. This could be a public safety and welfare issue with the increased parking, traffic congestion, unsafe conditions, with the addition of more alcohol options. So while we understand those concerns, we don't know that there's any, I guess, strong evidence assuming that serving liquor would result in increased congestion. It's a menu item. It's questionable of whether that would essentially ramp up activities at that restaurant per se. A few pictures here. The pizza, of course, that's what they come for. There is a bar in the restaurant. On the upper left, there's an outdoor seating area, the lower left, and then, of course, beer taps. The outdoor seating area is along the property line. Currently, we talked about code compliance. There's a requirement that outdoor dining cannot occur within the side setback, which is 10 feet essentially. So this area would have to be either moved, relocated somewhere else, or essentially moved inside, not allowed to take place in this outside area. So looking at compatibility, and we were talking about this earlier, this is the case-by-case basis that we're looking at now. Adverse effects on neighbors. So I think we address this in the conditions to the 10 p.m. closing hour. Now, this is more strict than the Land Development Code text amendment that you adopted, because this is for everything. This is for all service. For the restaurant, it has to close at 10. No outdoor music or amplified sound, and essentially compatible with neighborhood character. I think that that's kind of a self-limiting factors. When you have a 2,000 square foot building, there's only just so many potatoes you can get in the sack. So essentially, without expanding, it would be difficult for them to essentially have an outsized impact that a larger restaurant might have. Are there steps taken to minimize adverse effects? We're going to talk more specifically about landscape code compliance, additional screening. We talked about plugging the gap of the fences, preventing the cars from accessing Las Olas. The fourth test is conditional uses and the effect on adjacent properties are properly arranged and operated in accordance with applicable district regulations. So we don't believe that adding mixed drinks to the menu would change operational aspects. Essentially, it's still a restaurant, it's operating as a restaurant, and we believe that the plus on this is code compliance with the additional landscaping and screening will help improve the function and the appearance of the restaurant. Adequate public facilities. It is served by Central Water and Sewer. A1A is an two-lane arterial roadway with turn lanes. The current restaurant produces estimates at least 208 daily trips, and the peak time is a weekend PM peak hour, 137 trips based on surveys. A1A is a relatively lightly traveled road, and I use the term relatively, I've gotten in trouble for saying that before. LOSC is a pretty good level of service. It's only when you get to the D, E, and F for fail that things get kind of hairy. There is no transit on Hutchinson Island. The property is served by Fire Station Number 8, 4.2 miles north. In summary, adequate public facilities are present to serve this existing use. So environmental impacts, it is an urban, there's hardly a twig on the property now, it's mostly pavement. So the idea is we would essentially get right with code and put some landscape islands in, and of course control that lighting, not just for the turtles but for the neighbors. We did send out a conditional use mailer, and 340 mailers were sent out, which is a large number, and that's really the condominiums across the street. We received, and they came in today, so we're updating them as we go. So there are actually 30 forms were returned, 18 in favor of this conditional use permit, 10 opposed, and 2 who had no opinion, but felt it important to send that in. There is a threshold when it gets to the county commission, and that'll be a little weird with this one with the condominiums, but essentially if half or more of the noticed land area, not people, but land area, opposes, then it takes a supermajority vote essentially. This is a little difficult to get your head around when you think that would this require that all the condominium residents all approve, all hundreds of them, I guess, oppose it. We haven't gotten to that stage yet. And of course, we did get 11 emails, 1 letter from the mailer. 7 were opposed, 3 were in favor, and 2 were just basically asking questions. There was a neighborhood meeting held on Friday, July 18th at the restaurant. This was the applicants' meeting. They sent out, I think, a series of emails to folks soliciting attendance. It was attended by 9 residents, 7 restaurant employees, the agent, 2 county staffers. So questions came up. The hours of operation would not change, close at 10. No expansion of the restaurant would be planned. The only change would essentially be serving liquor, mixed drinks, and the principal use of the restaurant will continue. There would be conditions, and we'll talk about them when we go through the conditions specifically. Limits on hours of operation, no amplified outdoor sound, additional landscaping and screening. What happens with the vacant lot to the north? The applicant intends to use this for parking, and if parking becomes problematic, they will pursue the option of valet parking. So, we do recommend approval of this conditional use permit subject to the following conditions. Prior to the commencement of serving spirits, the property shall comply with the improvements shown in the site plan. Hours of operation limited to 3 to 10 p.m., seating limited to 120. Parking in the lot not allowed on the grass in the vacant lot to the north, and if found necessary by staff, the applicant will identify this area as a no parking sign by a sign, bollards, ropes, or similar elements. This condition shall not prevent the applicant from expanding parking if it's needed to this area in the future upon proper design and permitting in accordance with our land development code. Also, the requirement that deliveries be made from the front or the south side of the restaurant, not from Las Olas Drive, and that such deliveries occur before the restaurant opens at 3 p.m. And the intent here is to just kind of tone down the traffic and the action on Las Olas residential street. They will need to relocate that outdoor dining area outside of the side setback. I'm not sure exactly how much room there is to do that, but that is something that will have to be done. Outdoor amplified sound shall be prohibited. That can be music, that can be loudspeakers announcing tables. It would be prohibited. Any exterior lighting shall be shielded and downcast to reduce glare. And prior to the final conditional use permit adoption, an alcohol license sign-off, the applicant shall provide a cross-access and shared access agreement to the neighbor's property to the north and south. A few amendments here after discussion with the applicant. I think we talked about this. Only if the applicant decides to use the vacant property parking, then they need to provide that parking agreement. They don't need to provide it unless they actually intend to use those parking spaces. I think we were going to change this one too. So just to try to clarify that, I don't want to get into too much confusion here, but the cross-access agreement to the north, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, that will be required if that parking is needed for the restaurant. Okay. So, and this is the important part, or one of the important parts, is number 12, which is essentially 3 new landscape islands, 2 on the front at the north and the south end of that front parking row, and then 1 in the rear, kind of along Las Olas. These shall conform with the county's code. There are, for example, maybe palms will have to be used because of the salt spray or whatnot, but there needs to be trees and vegetation in those landscape islands, and that will help to kind of break up the pavement, provide a little green space there. I won't get into specifics, but shade trees can be used, or as an alternative, clusters of 3 palm trees equating to 1 canopy tree. So, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for staff?
I got one. Has there ever been a study that compares adding liquor to a beer and wine, that it makes a business busier or have more foot traffic?
Chair Benner, members of the commission, Commissioner Bradley, I don't think staff has accessed any particular data or studies that identify that it's increasing foot traffic. Obviously, it could appeal to a broader range of clients or customers. It could extend the duration in which someone might attend or go to a restaurant after consuming a meal. It certainly, I anticipate that the crux behind this is that they're pursuing additional revenue. So I certainly can imagine that would increase overall revenue. But I think it's difficult for staff to weigh in on whether or not we're expecting higher turnover or higher volumes of patrons at the establishment. Obviously, there's just by default the size of the structure, limited space for outdoor seating areas, especially with our recommended condition that they tighten up that footprint to comply with the county's land development code. And of course, parking definitely limits access and operations of businesses.
Is it safe to say that if they wanted to add 50 more parking spots compared to adding a liquor license, that 50 parking spots would make it busier compared to the liquor license?
I think that is a restaurant by restaurant basis. I just due to sheer proximity, I'm not a frequent flyer at Brock's. Locally, there's anomalies. I think about Moon Swiner's where they haven't increased seating, they haven't increased the size of the building, but the parking lot has needed to expand, twofold in my lifetime, threefold in my lifetime. Now, some of that is there's more people waiting, it's peak times, but that restaurant and that I mentioned is closer to proximity to a college, closer to employment hubs, closer to folks that need to get in and out during that peak hour of lunchtime and dinner time. Whereas this particular petition is their range of hours is 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. in somewhat of a remote area for folks on the mainland, to where it through the commercial neighborhood district, it appears that it's serving that niche of it's intended to serve the surrounding area, folks that might walk to the site, ride a bike, where legal, drive in a golf cart, and so that's a consideration. Uber, where they're dropped off. So I think it's challenging for staff to weigh in on whether or not this would increase volume of patrons or spread out the demand. My observations of pizza places, and we heard testimony this evening that specials and pricing structures where if you're offering a $6 pizza 2 nights of the week, usually those are on off nights that you want to generate interest in folks showing up. Monday night football, Thursday night football, Sunday night football, college football on Saturday. I think there's a lot of different variables that weigh in on popularity of a restaurant, volumes, and peak times. But what we have tangible here is the operation hours being constrained to 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. as proposed at least.
Mr. Lowndes.
Mr. Crowe, did I read in that we are asking them to reduce their outside area, or did I misinterpret that?
Yes, Mr. Lowndes, through the chair, if I could go to that picture real quick. It may be a little hard to see, but that lower left picture, essentially that area is within the 10-foot side yard setback, which the code does not allow. So I'm not sure how much room they have to work with, but they would essentially have to back that 10 feet away from the lot line or move it to another part on the site.
Commissioner Lowndes, if I may add to that, so today, and that's an older photograph, as the building that's pictured to the north has been demolished. It's no longer there. But the setback that is referenced, it's part of our supplemental standards where a commercial establishment has outdoor seating. The seating itself, that area needs to adhere to setbacks. We haven't specifically tracked the origin of that, but as part of our code compliance review, we pointed that out, that we're looking for that to comply with the code. They have options of tightening it up, ensuring that setback is made. In theory, they could pursue a dimensional variance if the condition were to allow that flexibility, or should the applicant acquire the parcel to the north and combine them, there's no longer a setback limitation or restriction because that property line could be eliminated.
So currently they're utilizing an area right now for outside feeding, outside dining.
That's correct, Commissioner.
And they're not in code to do that?
Based upon the survey, it appears that infringes in the 10-foot setback, so it would be a violation. One consideration for their current license, their current operations, if the applicant, for instance, if we had a code violation and staff was evaluating this, we would need to pinpoint when that code was adopted in our county ordinance, and we would need to track through aerials or any imagery as to when that seating was established to see if it predated our ordinance. But because this is a conditional use review and the applicant's seeking to elevate the licensure, staff was evaluating it for comprehensive code compliance. We pointed that out, and as part of our recommendation, we're looking for them to tighten that up and comply with that standard unless alternatives are struck.
Staff, it just seems that in certain times of the year, that would be a mighty nice place to have a cold beer and a pizza. I understand code and enforcement and such have you, but if the building to the north that we look at, it's yellow, is gone, where's the infringement and where is the objection of them maintaining an outside feeding area? Because now they're going to sell spirits and not beer and wine. Did I miss something there?
Commissioner, it specifically relates to in staff's tasked standards of review. The first question is, does the proposal comply with the land development code and the comprehensive plan? So we're taking a look at essentially every line of the code that would apply to this business. We do have a specific standard in our land development code, which I can provide you with. And again, this body doesn't have to include that specific limit in their recommendation, but it's something that staff pointed out in our review, and we wanted you to be aware of it. And so that is Land Development Code Section 710.02, outdoor displays in commercial zoning districts. And subpart B3 states, outdoor eating areas are permitted as an accessory use to any permitted eating establishment in any commercial zoning district subject to the following standards. Subpart A then is the outdoor seating area does not occupy an area greater than 50% of the building area of the business or use to which the eating area is accessory. B, the outdoor eating area is not located in any required yard or setback, parking area, service area, landscape area, drainage area, or public right-of-way. And then it continues on with additional criteria.
Thank you, sir.
I got a couple quick questions. One of the conditions was to put a fence on the vacant lot, but they don't own the vacant lot. So how can we condition them to put a fence on the lot that isn't part of this?
Chair Binner, that position would be if they do strike an arrangement. And so to put context of that, commercial parking as a use of property, it's permissible in a commercial general and an industrial light district. As a standalone use where it's not linked or accessory to an abutting business or operation, it's not a standalone permissible use. So if the applicant is pursuing an arrangement, an agreement, an easement to tie that parking to their bona fide primary use, then it can be linked as an accessory use, and we would look to ensure that that complies with our land development code, including screening and buffering from residential. And as Mr. Crow indicated, there's the concerns of having that parking area accessible from Las Olas, whereas today the only parking supporting Brock's that we're aware of that is actively accessible via Las Olas is the employee parking to the immediate west side of Brock's.
And the employee parking, you said, isn't there? They made an agreement with the county, so the county is the one that's allowing the employee parking in the back. That
Yes, so as I understand, there was a revocable license agreement established between the property owner Brock's and St. Lucie County in 2016 that does allow for 8 employee parking spaces along the west side of the building, again, specifically limited to employees. It has some quantitative details of trying to park as close to the building and establishment off of the road right-of-way as possible. There's other provisions. And so as we understand it, with the configuration proposed by the applicant, they would need to jointly pursue an update to that revocable license agreement to account for existing or proposed conditions, again, maintaining that limitation for employee parking only.
And I mean, I guess other than just signage, there's no way to enforce unless you're out there, like, right? It's just honor system.
That would certainly, I think, turnover is one of those considerations, and it was discussed, and it could certainly be incorporated by this body. When we think about a pizzeria, one component, whether it's a third party via DoorDash or equivalent, or an employee in house with Brock's, employees, if they're coming in for a 6-hour, 8-hour shift, they park, the vehicle's not turning on, there's not movements, there's not the traffic when they're stationary, other than potentially a delivery driver. And that could be a condition that's appropriate of making sure that the delivery driver's regular parking spot is in an area that's not utilizing Las Olas for access.
And then when the signs that say no parking, so the condition use would say that they have to install one, but it sounds like they're already having signs missing. So does it need to say that if it comes up missing, they have to reinstall it? Or is it just do it up front and hope to God it stays there for 30 years?
Chair Binner, I think that's a reasonable qualification, that they are tasked and responsible with installing and maintaining those signs as it correlates with their business operation. Now, I would want to keep that in immediate vicinity in that ballpark area, but that's something that could be explored and potentially incorporated not only with the conditional use, but a topic of the revocable license agreement as well.
All right. And then one last thing was, what was it? Oh, the garbage. Is there any modifications or improvements to dumpsters or garbage that from your site assessment?
Mr. Chairman, and the applicant can answer that question as well. I think they have a presentation. As we understand it, they have the rollout carts. They do not have a dumpster. And they have the rollout carts, so the garbage trucks, at least I believe, come in from A1A, and the carts are rolled out to meet them.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff? Are we ready for the applicant?
We are ready.
If the applicant has a presentation, come on down.
I emailed it to the chambers as soon as I got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Nicholas Giesler, attorney with Bartlett Loeb, Hines, Thompson, and Angelos on behalf of applicant FI Ventures LLC. And also here with me is land planner Dennis Murphy with Culpeper and Turpinning. I think staff did a good job of really hitting all the points of this conditional use application, but because this is quasi-judicial, I do want to make sure we get on the record all of the elements of the conditional use application and everything that the code requires as evidence today. Because this is quasi-judicial, the task of a quasi-judicial tribunal is to make its decision based solely on the competent, substantial evidence that is presented at the hearing today. So there's case law that we provided. I won't go through it all, but it is part of the presentation that says what is competent, substantial evidence. And the main thing typically in a hearing like this is the county staff report. The staff report itself and the findings in the staff report are considered competent, substantial evidence. And also the recommendation is considered the opinion of staff experts also to be considered as evidence. Part of the case law also states that public comment, while obviously taken into consideration for legislative reasons, is not considered competent, substantial evidence. It is considered opinion from non-experts, and case law is clear that it is not to be considered in the approval or denial as weighted the same as the evidence presented before you from staff and from an expert or evidence presented by a party to today's proceeding. So there's four main standards under the St. Lucie County Land Development Code when processing a conditional use application. The first is consistency with the local code and the comp plan. The application conforms to several of the goals and objectives of the comp plan, and the specifics of these provisions are recited in the application and also in the staff report. But they are Goal 1.1, Objective 1.1.4, Objective 1.1.10, and Objective 1.1.13. And in short, a distillation of most of these is just that the comp plan gives the Land Development Code and the staff and the governing boards the authority to make these kinds of site-specific determinations to make sure that businesses have the ability to utilize their property and that there is a variety of uses for residential properties in these types of zones. As far as the code goes, should the text amendment be approved, then the conditional use will be an option under the code, and therefore the application will be in compliance with the code should it be approved. The second standard is compatibility with neighborhood uses. The site is surrounded by a variety of different uses, residential, commercial, there's hotels in the area. Of note, there are 3 restaurants within a square mile that are similarly situated that do currently offer distilled beverage as an option. This is known as Italian Restaurant, Kyle G's, and Shuckers. They all already are are permitted to do what the applicant is seeking here today, and they are in neighborhoods very similar to the applicants. The restaurant character, as we've already discussed, will not change. This isn't the type of establishment where people come to just drink. People come to eat. That's not going to change. Simply, the only thing that will change is the beverage that they choose to have with their meal. This will not be marketed as a place to come and drink all night. The hours of operation will close at 10, and it's simply a menu option to include with their meal. The second most important part, I think, of the compatibility issue are the conditions. The conditions will ensure compatibility because they were tailored by the county staff in conjunction with the applicant to make sure that they're not doing anything and are not allowed to do anything that is going to be incompatible with the neighborhood. The third and fourth factors are the adequacy of public facilities and environmental impact. Public facilities are not going to be impacted by the permit because the use is not going to change. We do have a engineer. We hired an engineering firm to ensure that traffic patterns won't change, that the parking patterns won't change, and that the public facilities will not be overburdened by this, which they won't because everything is going to stay exactly the same as far as the exterior use is concerned. There is no environmental impact because there's no development being proposed. Everything is going to stay the same. So the conditions are very important, and staff has gone through this with you, but the conditions are going to not only ensure that things don't change for the negative for the property, the surrounding property owners, but they're actually going to improve many of the issues that the public is here today to talk about. Issues such as landscaping, parking, the delivery pattern, noise, the outside seating, all those are current issues that the public has with the restaurant. These will all be improved because if the applicant didn't provide this conditional use application, all these things would stay exactly the same. Well, now there is going to be an enforcement mechanism to make sure that landscaping does improve on the site, that the screening improves on the site, that the parking improves on the site, and that there are no noise issues on the site. So not only will there not be a negative impact, there's actually going to be an improvement to the surrounding properties. I do have a copy of the site plan, which you can't see very well. I guess the county's version will be better. For the sake of the record, I do want to call up our land planner, Dennis Murphy. And Mr. Murphy, can you just say your name for the record?
Dennis Murphy, Culpeper Interpreting, Fort Pierce, representing petitioner.
And can you tell the tribunal what your occupation is and your work history?
I am a land planner with the firm of Culpeper Interpreting. We're an engineering, land planning, surveying, construction management company here in Fort Pierce. I've been with them for just over 20 years. And prior to that, I was 22 years here with St. Lucie County. I had many job titles. When I left, I was the head of the Department of Community Development.
Is this a copy of your resume?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to submit this just for the record. Mr. Murphy, did you and your firm create the site plan for this conditional use application?
Yes, sir. We prepared that.
And did you review the site plan and the application in conjunction with the land development regulations of the county?
Yes.
And does the site plan and the application conform with all of the regulations of the land development code and the comprehensive plan?
Within the limits of the code and the allowances with it described within, yes, it is an accurate representation of the conditions on the property.
Okay, that concludes the applicant's presentation. We're here to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
All right, back to the board. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I got one. Is there any objections to the county requirements?
No, we have no objections to the conditions that were placed by county staff.
Anything else from the board? All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
We're available for questions.
All right, thanks. All right, so this is a public hearing. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the board on this agenda item, come on down, state your name and address into the mic. Please make sure comments are directed at the board. Everything is televised and recorded. If there's any questions or anything we need to button up afterwards, we'll try and bring the applicant back up if we need to. Okay.
All right, Tom Mooney, 95 South Los Olas Drive. So there's really a lot to unpack here from all of the things that were brought up just recently, especially in the presentation. There's a lot to unpack here, especially what was brought up in the presentation. First and foremost, the 3 restaurants that they pointed out are not in any way, shape, or form in a similar situation as to what Brock's is to BCC OTO. We're within 50 feet of that restaurant. Those other ones that they pointed out do not have that same similar situation. The other thing, with all due respect, there is an ordinance for setbacks, and just because the building has been removed doesn't take the setback requirement out. And if these gentlemen actually really were concerned and trying to make a better condition with our neighborhood, I'm not quite sure why the trash truck has to show up at 4:30 in the morning on the Las Olas side. My wife and I probably and Ralph have the most to lose here or deal with. That trash truck's 4:30 in the morning. I really don't understand why it has to be at 4:30 in the morning when they don't open until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So nobody's looked into that condition or why that's happening. Next point is there's way more than 8 cars that park out back there. And they line up from one end of Brock's all the way down and almost over to the real estate office. They park in all different directions. We've had cars back out and hit a car in our neighborhood, out in front of our house. It's a free-for-all. Their delivery people drive through that neighborhood at about 30, 40 miles an hour. We had posted signs at 10 miles an hour. All those posted signs have been taken down. We're not sure who took them down, but they're no longer there. There's conversations that go on way past 9, 10 o'clock because the employees are leaving, so they're all standing out back there and they're having conversations, smoking cigarettes, and doing all the types of things that employees typically do. So 50 feet from our neighborhood, it's not anywhere comparable to what they're trying to point out. Since that fence was removed, we've asked numerous times for them to put that fence back up, not to them specifically, but we've asked the real estate office who owns it. Nothing's been done. It's quite interesting to me that if they're stating that there's walk-up traffic and, I understand the experts are here, but they don't live there. I'm there every single night. I hardly see any walk-up traffic, and I hardly see any golf carts. And why are we trying to increase the parking by renting the space, the additional space? We're talking now about potentially, if it gets too busy, that they're going to do valet parking and all these types of things. Why are we talking so much about parking if we're just a neighborhood pizzeria and you're serving the local area? There's tons of cars that come in there, and they come from, because we have friends that come from off the island to go to Brock's. So I would ask that you take all those things into consideration as you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? This is the time. Welcome back.
Bob Doyle, 128 Las Olas. I'd like to give y'all a little flavor of the community that we're talking about here. Beach Club Colony consists of roughly 90 units. 18 of them are 2-story condominiums. And as was said, there's a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit in that community. The proposal that they're looking for, they talk about the commercial trucks coming into our community. Well, that was something that come about from the previous board here, and Art Zeckman, that there's a sign as you drive in on Surf Drive that says, no commercial vehicles beyond this point as you come into there, except for residential. We can take furniture delivery, things like that. That sign was granted by the commission, and they gave us assurances that they would work with us on that. Well, through the years, we continuously have delivery trucks come in, stop. Some of them would go in and eat, leave the trucks running. An hour later, they come out. I would sit there and call the deputy because the signs were there. And there's usually only one on the island at a time. And I would see them at times drive right on by looking to see if I was sitting there and keep on going north rather than have to address the delivery person. Multiple times I called the company he worked for and informed them of the sign. Well, if we don't enforce the sign, what's the sense of the sign? The employee parking, so that you understand this, every unit from Surf Drive south, except for the 7-Eleven, was a duplex in Beach Club Colony. And it was converted to commercial property. And that's when they swapped the address from Beach Club, from Las Olas to A1A. They swapped the address. The front became the back, the back became the front. Well, when they did that, it being a duplex, they only had one employee parking back there. That was the driveway for the duplex. So we got with the county, hashed it out. That's when they were given the 7 employee only parking permit. They said, okay, they would do that. Now, if you look, they have the 7, and they have the entire lot that Sean had the building tore down, another 80 feet. And it's marked employee only. How many employees do they have that are there in the hours that they're working for this to be granted? And as I say, we have a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit. I don't know where you live, but I guarantee you nobody drives 10 miles an hour up and down your streets. Okay, we have elderly people walking all the time. There's things like that. And as I say, when you can't park out front, where do you go? Well, let's go in here. When they find out there's no parking, they don't back up. They go all the way over through the community and back out. And sometimes they'll just keep circling and circling. So that's the issue. Now, how many places is the county aware of where you ingress and egress commercial property from residential? That's what they're asking to do. Come into the residential and go to your commercial parking. I don't think there's too many of those that have been permitted. Perhaps if they put a fence from their property all the way up to Sean's property, Sean owns that lot, so whatever deal they make with you now, if Sean's deal falls through, does that stay? Or does it go with Sean and his property? They're going to lease that property. The property to the south side of that, they couldn't use it all because Sam put up a fence, 4-foot chain link fence up there. He got into dispute with them, and it wasn't until they said they would pay him to remove the fence, because he was saying that the people were parking there, his trucks couldn't get in and come around because he has a pull around there. They couldn't get in there. So they did that. And when they did that, they also took away the 4-foot fence that went to the corner of the duplex, which was converted to commercial. That's why the fence was there.
Okay.
So that got taken down. There was never, ever, ever egress and ingress from our community out through that side thing there. That didn't happen until they took the fence down.
Okay. We'll try and get some clarity on some of that stuff that you asked. We do.
What now?
Well, I said we'll try and get some clarity on some of the questions that you had asked. But the time is up. It's a public hearing, so I gotta let everybody else get a turn too. Unfortunately. All right, thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to address the board on this item? Come on down. Name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Rocky Brock. I live at 99 Elmar Drive, Jensen Beach. I am not a professional, as he eloquently pointed out, so my opinion doesn't matter. But I will say, I came tonight to actually speak in favor of passing this because it doesn't bother me if they have liquor or not. I don't drink. I do not know if having liquor will increase the traffic. You know, there is the point that people will possibly sit longer, but then that's speculation. The trash truck does not pick up from the front. It does come in from the back, and that is an issue. And if they will address traffic, keep their people driving within a safe speed limit when they're making their deliveries, I have no problem. They've been doing a very nice business in the past. I wish them luck in the future. So it's entirely up to you. All my friends here probably hate me now because I'm speaking in favor of this. I apologize for that, but I must speak my mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public on this agenda item?
One note.
Come on down.
Bill Sullivan, 69 South Las Olas. In the last presentation, it was noted that Brock's was comparing themselves to, I think, 3 other restaurants. And it is nowhere near close to any of the 3 restaurants noted in comparison to the way it's set up. Right? None of those restaurants have a commercial portion of their business operating in a residential neighborhood. Right? And the back of that building is what I consider a commercial portion when they run the delivery service, the break room, and the parking back there. That's commercial part of the business, and it impedes in the residential portion of our neighborhood. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Mooney, 95 South Las Olas. My husband and I actually frequent the restaurant very often. We go there, we sit, we have beer, we have wine, we love Lorraine, we love the food. But, our concerns are, as voiced here, about the traffic. I'm very curious to know why the timing of this request occurred when the majority of our residents and neighbors are snowbirds and away for the summer. Same with the condominium. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was timing. I'm sure you're trying to get this in before season. If any of you have ChatGPT, all you have to do is go on it, ask the question one of you did about studies or will alcohol increase? Absolutely. 20 to 30%. 75% is usually beer, 70 wine, 80 spirits. So yes, it does say that it will bring 15 to 25% of increase in attendance when alcohol is offered. That's our concern. Those pictures, they're so inaccurate, they're so old. There's tables and chairs all outside. There's a bar outside. The people that own the lot rent the vacant lot to them because they need parking. There's no parking during the season now, and all the employees, you only have a picture. If you could put that picture up again, please. It only shows down behind the restaurant. You didn't show a picture of where our homes are in the proximity of the field and the back of the restaurant. All the employees park on the back except the 2 delivery. They park behind the restaurant because they're going up and down the street. How many times? 127 deliveries you mentioned, sir? You gave the stats of how many deliveries per.
It was just traffic. It wasn't
Okay.
deliveries.
Well,
So that's
those
customers and
that goes up and down, our street. So, we want to be good neighbors. We love it, the restaurant too. I'm a commercial lender. I help business owners grow their business. I'm all in favor of that. But we are concerned and worried about the additional patrons, because there are 3 other restaurants, and you're right, they're on the beach, they're nowhere near like our neighborhood. And what will that increase? Because everybody knows, I mean, people want to maybe have a cocktail versus go down the street to Shuckers or Magic Oyster when they can go to your restaurant. But with that added traffic, if all of these violations and setbacks and nothing's been done, garbage trucks today, how do we know that all these changes are going to occur and who's going to monitor them? And that would be our concern.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much. Anybody else from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and come back to the board for discussion and or a motion.
Corey, you may know this. You're an encyclopedia. Is Las Olas a public road or is it a private road?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Our records indicate that it's a platted roadway. It's accessible to the public. It's not gated. As far as historical maintenance, I'd have to consult our Public Works team. I don't think off the cuff our county engineer would have that information available, but it's open to the public. In consulting the 1984 zoning atlas, which was a pivotal date, those atlases display the property from Surf Drive south as being in the commercial neighborhood zone, so that zoning's been in place for some time. And the zoning line usually extends to the center line, so the east side of the road, commercial neighborhood, the west side, Hutchinson Island residential.
Thank you.
And then just to address it, because it got brought up twice, the county or the business owner doesn't have any say over when Waste Management or Waste Pro or whatever does garbage pickup?
Chair, I know that conversation occurred through our Development Review Committee process. I don't know with certainty what the outcome of that exploration with Waste Pro was. I know we talked about it with a past PNRD that was proposing commercial uses adjacent to residential. Historically, when it's the rollout residential cans, they're starting usually 7 a.m. and later. Sometimes commercial dumpsters, 2-yard, 4-yard, 6-yard, those can be serviced closer to 6 a.m. and so forth. I think that's definitely a takeaway for staff to research further and find out with Waste Pro and see if alternatives can be explored. Depending upon site orientation and input from the applicant, what comes to my mind, if they could strike a deal, they're working to strike a deal for access to the south. There's that drive aisle loop. In my mind, a joint dumpster between the two commercial sites that's accessible from the east as part of a continuous loop where it doesn't require the driver to back up or reverse, which would cause that backup beeping, might be a more appropriate option with an increased buffer instead of just a wood fence, having at least a fence or wall with landscaping. So that's definitely a notation for staff.
Uh-huh. And then, anybody else got anything? Got that.
I'd like to make a motion.
Anybody can make a motion, yeah?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Gettler. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Bradley.
Chair Benner, if we may confirm, is that with staff's recommended conditions?
Staff's recommended, yes. Staff's recommended conditions.
All right.
And let me rephrase that real quick. Staff recommendation, that's also including the code or the possible code issue of the setback and everything.
That's how it's currently authored by staff. If this body wants to propose any modifications in their recommendations, certainly can.
I mean, the applicant accepted it and they said it here in front of us. I just want to make sure it was a part of it.
Yes, conditional approval number 6, and I understand that they didn't take issue with that.
All right. Motion approved by Gettler, second by Bradley. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Neese?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Benner?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass.
All right, motion carries. Now, we are just a recommending body. What we vote on here is just a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. This will still go in front of the Board of County Commissioners. Their say is what goes. Anything that's came up in this meeting, I'd maybe talk to the applicant or their representatives, but this will be going again in front of the board, and they're going to be the final say. So, but thank you guys for all coming out, and we appreciate your input. Next agenda item would be 9G, Piera Sand Mine.
Mr. Chair, for the record, Thad Crow, Senior Planner. This is another conditional use permit tonight for a sand mine located in the Western County off Sneed Road. We did satisfy the public notice requirements, including a sign on the property, mailer, and ad.
If we could take the conversations outside, I'm having trouble hearing. Sorry. Thanks, guys.
So this is an aerial. You can see that it is in a rural part of the county, formerly agricultural mostly, and also large lot residential, particularly along Sneed Road, east of the subject property, and other locations. There's north of Flume Road, there's, I believe, 15 homes going up to Orange Avenue. South of Flume Road, there are no homes. It's Water Management District lands or undeveloped lands. The future land use is all Ag 5, pretty much out there, until you get down to the P1 Motor Club, which you see in the bottom part there. Zoning also Ag 5. So in Ag 5, there's a variety of uses that are allowed, including as a conditional use, the mining and quarrying of non-metallic minerals, in this case sand. This is a 77-acre site. You can see it consists of a large lake in the middle. This 44-acre lake would be dug over time with a proposed depth of 50 feet. We are recommending 40-foot maximum to minimize any potential risk of saltwater intrusion, although the applicant's engineer has submitted some expert evidence that this is not a risk. The sand would be removed by up to 200 trucks daily making round trips, all going south. No truck traffic going north, all going south to Okeechobee Road. And the applicant has agreed to landscape perimeter and we'll get a better look at this in a little bit, a separate 12-foot tall berm landscaped with trees and vegetation along the east-northeast property line with the intent of essentially diffusing noise, visuals, and protecting residents to the north and east. The first phase, you see phase 1 over on the right-hand side, that involves excavating a 15-foot deep borrow pit. That's a level below which normally requires dewatering. That pond will hold water throughout the project, and the intent is to keep the water table at a stable point without fluctuations, with the intent of not affecting nearby groundwater levels and wells. Following that first phase, excavation will occur in each one of these cells, and in each of these cells, they will basically dig out water and relocate it within that cell to a borrow pit with the intent of keeping that water table as stable as possible. And please, I am certainly no engineer, so the applicant will do a much better job than I will in describing their intentions. Talking about that 12-foot tall berm, let's see, this is north is to the left, so you can see Flume Road is to the right. So the 12-foot berm would basically run from Flume Road along parallel to the property line, about 75 feet off that property line, and then jog to the west. And again, this will be a heavily vegetated berm with the intent of removing the visual impacts and screening out any potential noise and dust impacts from the mining operation. This is basically a section showing that berm. It's in the middle. You can see the property line, eastern property line is to the right. You've got about 75 feet before that berm starts, and then it gradually goes up to that 34-foot elevation, 12-foot height, and then back down again. You can see over on the left-hand side where pond, that's basically where the mining operation starts. So you've got your more than 200-foot setbacks from that eastern property line for any mining activities, and the homes to the north and east are at least 900 feet away. So essentially you've got somewhere around 1,200 feet or so, give or take, between the homes to the east and the mining operations. And the intent, of course, is to use that berm to help. Distance definitely diffuses sound, and the berm will help a good deal too. Mining operations would be limited to weekdays 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Project length intended to be 3 to 5 years. And again, this is very important. Dump trucks must travel south on Sneed Road to Okeechobee Road so as not to impact residences. And the access to the mine will be from Flume Road. That's owned by the North St. Lucie River Water Control District, running along the north side of the Swift Canal. This will be paved to the mine entrance, which is approximately 1,300 feet west of Sneed Road. The applicant has agreed to fund the widening, 2-foot widening, and we hear this a lot about Sneed Road. It's a narrow road. There's drop-offs. There's very little shoulder, so there's some safety issues, obviously. The applicant has agreed to fund the 2-foot widening on each side, which would result in a travel lane width of 12 feet each lane, which does meet our code. The county plans to resurface Sneed Road 2028 at this point in time. And you can see from some of these pictures that Sneed Road is not in very good shape. So the intent is to get it in decent shape to support the activities of this proposed use. Bloom Road here is just a gravel road. It would be paved. I believe it's a 20-foot width. I could be wrong. To the 1,300 feet to the mine entrance. So, to bring up some of the issues from the last go-around, because this came before the county in 2023, neighbors did express concern. I think there were some concerns about the traffic and potential impacts to wells. The applicant did commission an engineering study by a reputable engineer that found a number of findings, groundwater flow travel, and one of the concerns about mining is dewatering, essentially, is you're drawing down the water in ponds and groundwater that can impact well pressure, dry out wetlands. So I think there was some concern from surrounding property owners that their wells could be affected. The pressure would drop. Essentially, they would have to be dug deeper, potentially. There is a wetland and a pond to the east. The engineer's simulations indicated maximum offsite drawdowns 10.5 feet on the north, 11.5 feet on the west, 3 feet on the south, and 1.5 feet on the east. The highest drawdowns are to the north and west. The applicant states have minimal impacts. These properties are not residences. They are mostly pastures, agricultural, or undeveloped. And the methodology utilized of dredging that pond on the east instead of dewatering and maintaining in each cell a borrow pits to store water, temporarily store water, near pre-construction water levels should help to reduce water impacts to the east. That is what the applicant's engineer has said. The applicant also, I think this is important as well, the applicant has agreed to cover any potential cost of well deepening and repair should any failure occur, even if it's not attributable to this project. Also from the applicant's engineering report, and I think our main concerns, hence the berm along that north and east property line, has been the residences to the east and northeast. A drawdown of 1.4 feet at the off-site building to the northeast should have a minimal effect on the property. It's only temporary. the hydrograph shows this degree of drawdown should only be experienced during the 7th month construction of cell 2. And I'm sorry to be reading this to you, but it's just, it's complex stuff. Hydrologically, a water level change of 1.4 feet, as that is within the normal fluctuation that you get throughout the year of the water table. Water levels are further moderated on the property by the canals that surround the project site and adjacent properties. So there's a number of effective ways to control the water flow to make sure that it doesn't dry out or doesn't flood. If there's any superficial aquifer water supply wells on the adjacent property, a reduction in water level of 1.4 feet should not affect the pump rate or use of the well. Well pumps are generally placed 20 to 30 feet below the water table or at a depth that is several feet below the anticipated water level. The reduction in superficial aquifer water level will not affect wells that pump from deeper aquifers, the upper Floridan aquifer. So based on the model groundwater contours, borrow pit dewatering and maintenance of the resulting ponds at an elevation of 20 feet results in groundwater flowing from the borrow pit area toward the off-site building to the northeast. No contamination is present on the borrow property. This is simple sand mining. There will be no chemicals utilized. There will not be any processing occurring. It's basic straight mining. No contamination will be created by mining activities, so the potential for contamination should not be increased by the drawdown. So consistency with the comprehensive plan, we do have some policies that address this particular application and essentially specifically enforce the LDC that extraction only be used where compatible with existing proposed land uses. Understanding that a mine by its nature is not compatible with residential uses, compatibility can be enhanced and assured by the use of distance between activities and homes, by the use of berms such as will be employed here, vegetation. There's a lot of different things, watering, stockpiles, making sure the dust is contained. There's a number of things that can be done to reduce that incompatibility potential. So specifically, the distance we talked about, the landscape perimeter, limitations on the hours and days of operation, the truck traffic limitations, and of course the owner's commitment to take responsibility for any problems with wells that may occur. Another comprehensive plan policy requiring a reclamation plan so that the mine doesn't basically leave a mess in their wake, and this requires a reclamation plan, which is part of the mining permit actually, and I'll back up and say that this is step 1, the conditional use. Step 2 is the actual mining permit, which gets a lot more specific and includes that reclamation plan. Regrading, revegetating the site, getting it back to probably a lot better than what it was before in terms of native plantings and natural grades. So policy, future land use policy 1.1.3.5, this talks about when you can switch from agricultural to non-agricultural. And obviously there's a certain amount of pressure in the county to do that with the citrus decline. But these, I believe, 8 factors essentially are utilized in looking at this. We talked about compatibility, the viability of continued agricultural uses. That is going down. Cattle grazing, sure, but not so much citrus and farming. Soil suitable for urban use. This is not a factor in this case. Urban use is not thought for. D, suitable with existing site-specific land characteristics, consistent with comprehensive development plans. Of course, this is through the conditional use process of the LDC, which is also kind of an appendage of the comprehensive plan. F, will have available the necessary infrastructure concurrent with anticipated demands for development. This is not a residential development, a subdivision. This is not really applicable. G, will avoid the extension of the urban services boundary. This will not be an attractor to pull that urban services boundary out toward this area. It is a temporary use, which will be converted back to a natural feature at the end of the day. So we talked about the viability of ag. I think we went over this very quickly. And we talked about the drawdown issues and some of the measures that the applicant has taken, and I know that they're going to speak to this further when they do their presentation, but we wanted to provide kind of a baseline of information about how these impacts can and should be addressed. Policy 1.1.3.6, this is buffering. There's a 200-foot setback from property lines, and there is that tall berm, vegetated berm with heavy plantings above it, which will do a good deal to reduce noise and reduce dust, any potential dust. And again, repeating myself, the conditions of the monitoring the groundwater and fixing the problem if it does come up with the residents is there. Policy 6.1.72, this specifically targets resource extraction activities, and I think there will be a water truck on site that we utilize to dampen dust and stockpiles when it's dry and it's windy. So I think the applicant has agreed to be proactive in terms of getting ahead of that problem. Policy 6.1.7.1. This essentially talks about a whole issue of hydrology. It's like let's try to keep the groundwater stable. Let's try to not impact wells. Let's try to keep everything in a more of a natural state. So the applicant would be using a monitoring system that would look at anything that would occur in terms of groundwater impacts and impacts to neighboring properties to make sure that they would not be impacted. Reclamation plan, we've already talked about that. And the groundwater, again, monitoring of any groundwater issues and quick action to take to correct these impacts. So a little graphic that shows where we are. This is the property, and these are homes that surround the property along Sneed Road and to the north. Most of these homes are, all these homes are at least 900 feet away from the property lines. And again, you're adding the 200-foot setback and additional space, so you're upwards around 1,300 feet from the homes. Effect on adjacent properties. This is another criterion to consider. So the proposed conditional use, with all the conditions that we have been discussing, is not expected to cause significant adverse impacts to the surrounding properties. And if there are adverse impacts, the owner has committed on paper to essentially swiftly mitigate the impacts. Also, the area is to the south. There's no residences. It's all water management district. They're digging some really big ponds down there, so there's not impacts to speak of on lands to the south. And that, you can see, is happening as we speak. Some of the big heavy equipment that's being used by the district to dig out these stormwater areas. Effect on adjacent properties. Again, the limitations on hours, 7 to 4 p.m., weekdays only. The setbacks, the distance from the homes, the perimeter berm. I'm really repeating myself, so I'll try to fly through this. The water truck. Adequate public facilities. I think that improving Sneed Road makes a huge difference. I think everyone agreed that is currently more or less an unsafe road. So the notion here is it's a little bit of a win-win in that the county can work with the applicant to make that more of a safe road for both the dump trucks that go south and the residents that live along that road. We are recommending, even though it's not warranted, we are recommending a northbound left turn lane on Sneed Road to FDOT standards, county standards in terms of the stacking. We don't want to see the dump trucks tying up traffic as they go north to Flume Road. And finally, the county's third-party reviewer, Kinley Horn, has certified the applicant's traffic impact report. Environmental impacts. Our ERD has been working around the clock with the applicant to make sure that they have the tree mitigation required. There will be a lot of planting and replanting going on this site on a temporary basis. On a permanent basis, the reclamation plan involves revegetating the site. So I think at the end of the day, This will be what is now kind of a fallow area. It will now become a well-vegetated, beautiful area of native plantings. So neighborhood comments, we sent out 8 mailers with response forms. We received back 9 response forms, all in opposition. 4 of these forms were from 2 households. This complex thing again, the LDC requires a supermajority vote if 50% or more of the notice land area within 500 feet opposes. At this point in time, that it's not at that 50% threshold, so when it goes to the BOCC, that supermajority vote will not be required. So here we go with the conditions, and I appreciate your patience. So hours of operation, talked about that. Transportation, traffic, and that's the only south on Sneed Road rule. Northbound turn lane, 2-foot widening of each side of Sneed Road per county standards. We also will be asking for, through the mining permit process, a dump truck queuing, routing, and loading plan that essentially provides for a safe and efficient manner of access from the dump trucks. More transportation traffic conditions. Staff, prior to the mining permit, staff will be provided with the executed agreement for temporary use and improvement of right-of-way for Flume Road between the owner and the drainage district. Flume Road improvements shall include safety features such as the MUTCD compliant LED blinking advance and or signs indicating private access for sand mine at the entrance to Sneed Road. The proposed scale house office facility shall comply with LDC parking in terms of being paved and safe access by vehicles. Environmental landscaping conditions. The perimeter buffer around the site is one, but the temporary 12-foot tall berm is another, and you've probably heard us talking about the closed forest, and that's what we try to create, a noise baffling system of different varying evergreen trees, different heights, all the way from the ground level to a higher level, and essentially that really does do a lot to reduce the potential noise. Talked about the monitoring mitigation program. Should there be problems with neighboring wells, then the applicant will take care of those problems and commits to take care of those problems, even if it's not directly attributed to their actions. The applicant will be capping the on-site artesian wells as required by the district, and the reclamation plan will be completed within 3 years of cessation of mining activities. No burring of non-organic debris, litter, junk, or equipment should be allowed. Revegetation shall be required, the reclamation plan. And the applicant, as soon as site plan approval or mine approval occurs, they're going to remove all the invasive plant species. And the owner, this is an important one too, I think a lot of folks are concerned about this, so the owner will provide a report proving no evidence of projected saltwater intrusion or reduction of quality and quantity of well water and existing bodies of water will occur to nearby properties. This is required for the mining permit. Almost done. Environmental conditions again, and these are the standard ERD things. Would they need to get a tree removal permit? They need to look at tree relocation. They will be planning a lot of tree relocation for this site, so this will be closely scrutinized by the county. And we will be requiring a lake management plan per the Land Development Code, a reclamation bond. Listed species surveys will be required, and these species shall be taken care of if they are, I'm not taken out and shot, but relocated. And providing to the county a DEP air resources management system permit, and submit to the county all approved permits from regulatory agencies. Operational conditions, and this is kind of in the weeds. The dewatering pump intake will be controlled and discharged either into a developed dry retention area or a previously excavated lake area. Limited off-site discharges will be based on conditions and requirements by the district drainage district permit. I think we're talking about maybe in times of really heavy rain or whatever where there's the need to release some water. Sufficient pumping equipment, all to be in good working conditions. We talked about the first stage of production in that eastern borrow pit down to 15 to 17 feet, and that will hold water essentially to keep that water table steady. Contractor will be in compliance at all times with project stormwater pollution prevention plan. Each cell, each excavated area will be clearly monitored to adhere to the dewatering plan to prevent these cells from interfering with each other. So they will be essentially isolated and not intermingled. Final inspection will be conducted after termination of dewatering to ensure the state of the environment after completion of excavation is stable and sustainable. Excavations will be constructed using track, hoe, dredge, or other equipment. And to control flood and excavation coordination, constructed dry and wet retention areas with submersible pumps will be utilized. The applicant has requested a 50-foot depth for excavation. Staff has recommended it not exceed 40 feet. Prior to going to the Board of County Commissioners, the owner shall provide an annual output statement for the mine. The site shall have a water truck again to look at keeping the dust down on any stockpiles and other areas where wind and vehicles and machinery might be dislodging dust. Stockpiles should be located on the south side of the mine along Flume Road. Shall not exceed a height of 35 feet, and again, shall be watered when necessary, and not be on the site for more than 2 days before being removed for fill purposes. The mine shall maintain appropriate dust abatement protocols to reduce the spread of dust on adjacent properties. Again, no cleaning or processing of mine sand will occur, and no blasting. That's an important one. All on-site excavators, dump trucks, cranes shall be equipped with white noise backup alarm so that the annoying beep beeps don't drive people crazy. And the monitoring of vibration will be required to make sure that existing structures are not impacted by such vibration. Any lighting, exterior lighting proposed shall be downcast and shielded to prevent glare. And, yeah, I almost skipped over that. They have to meet the noise ordinance, and this is important because the noise ordinance is 58 decibels, I believe, during the day, and for residential uses being impacted, and 60 at night. So the night's not applicable. They don't operate then, but they'll have to make sure that they meet that limitation, and the adjacent residents do not have that kind of noise to contend with. Talked about the reclamation bond a little bit. That's something in the future that will need to be provided. And if they cease for 12 months or they just don't ever get started, and that 12-month period passes, the permit shall expire. At the time mining ceases, the property may be donated to the county, with the responsible department being Environmental Resources Department. Mining permit is required before anything happens. And again, the Board of County Commissioners and this commission as well shall attach any reasonable condition limitation that we may not have considered and may not be as part of this. Mr. Chairman, that was exhausting, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doe.
Mr. Crow, this operation has a projected lifespan of 3 to 5 years. Does this conditional use have a sunset?
Chair Benner, members of the commission, Commissioner Odell, the Board of County Commissioners has two aspects of reviewing this proposal, the first being the conditional use, and then the second being the mining permit. In the mining permit itself, we in our code, we have a class 1, class 2, and there's specific duration limits based upon those mining permits. That said, the Board of County Commissioners could prescribe a particular timeline or sunset. We know a lot of different market factors could affect whether they mine and complete the 44-acre lake in 3 to 5 years, or if it pushes out to 5 to 7. One aspect, though, that I would reiterate is that the Florida statutes, how they're structured in relation to emergency management and emergency order signed by the governor, whether it's a conditional use permit, a development order for a site plan, or even a building permit to build a home or a commercial building. When there is an emergency, a hurricane similar that affects St. Lucie County, folks can exercise rights to toll and extend the duration of those development orders or permits. And so there's a good chance that even if the board said, this absolutely, that the timeline is no more than 5 years, there's a chance that some of those provisions of statute would afford them an extension of time because we know sometimes hurricanes do affect and have a ripple on the local market and demand for fill, demand for consumer goods, you name it.
Okay, one more question. Can we go to the groundwater assessment, please, page 13? At the very bottom, it says the applicant has agreed to cover the cost of well deepening, repair, and so on. Is there a bond in place or an enforceable agreement to ensure this?
Commissioner Odell, as was structured with M Ranch and would be a key component of the mining permit, there would either be a surety, whether that's a cash deposit or a bond or similar posted or at least in place. For M Ranch in particular, there was an agreed upon standardized form similar to what you would have for an insurance coverage where, parties essentially sign up. The applicant, has a protection built in depending upon who's issuing that surety. And so if there's an issue, it's handled accordingly. In this instance, the applicant has kind of taken it a step further and said, that there wouldn't necessarily need to be demonstrable direct impacts correlating with the mining activities for them to step in and assist. Whereas M Ranch, there was that review process, right, where there would have to be a finding of fact and evidence that it's directly attributed to the mining activities. I would encourage the applicant to speak to what their proffer here is in those terms. But as has been communicated to us, that given the limited quantity of potable water wells, or at least usable water wells in the near vicinity, that the applicant is willing to have a far-reaching insurance program.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Does the applicant have an approach?
Do you have a presentation?
The applicant is present. I don't believe they have intentions of a full presentation. They might be wishing to speak to some of the aspects of this petition, distinguishing it from the prior conditional use that was evaluated by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Chair, I got a question.
Mr. Gettler, real quick.
Can we go to the slide you had up there about the people that supermajority and the people that were opposing the project?
If you want to go to the responses, that map color coded. There we
go. Do all those match the current one that you handed out, Corey, or is this? Seems like there might be a couple that need to be added to that, or no?
Mr. Crow. I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parcels. I believe there were six unique sets of property owners that replied back, and that included a total of 9 forms, 4 coming from 2 specific properties. So it generally appears accurate. Add anything that you might add based
it looks
upon
like the
what
one
came in?
just south of there's 2 King family, Wilmore King and Cheyenne King. I think you only have one of the properties on there.
So we'll certainly take a look here. I did at the onset of the meeting, I provided a copy of the conditional use response forms that were received by our team, and what we can take a look at is.
And then the large property to the north that's currently not shaded is the same owner as the larger block on the northeast. And if you click on the property appraiser website, it's one property. It's not 2 different properties.
We certainly will take a look at that. Should that be the lodged intention and that land is filed in opposition, that presumably would trigger the 50% supermajority threshold.
If either one of those is right, it triggers a supermajority?
The parcel due north that is not shaded, I understand it would.
I believe they're
Not out on Sneed, because Commissioners, it's the code states the represented area within 500 feet of the petition site. So if we took a 500-foot ring around the boundaries of the 77-acre site, quantify that acreage, let's say it's plus or minus 120 acres. Our GIS team, we've been keeping them in the loop as responses were lodged. I think as of today, there was a 2-acre gap of land not represented in opposition in comparison to the land that was in opposition. So one additional response within the 500-foot radius would trigger it. But that would be that parcel due north.
So real quick, just to clarify, how many parcels have to oppose in order for a supermajority on this particular application?
Commissioner, it's not a specific quantity of parcels. It's, for instance, you could have a situation where 9 out of 10 respondents oppose, but one of the respondents could own the majority of the acreage, how it's written in our land development code. But we will certainly audit that parcel to the north. That trigger, it's a component for the Board of County Commissioners action, and so if we validate that, or if additional responses occur between now and the BOCC, that's when the cutoff is.
Mr. Lowndes.
Mr. Crowe, Mr. Benton, do we know how they're going to extract the sand? Is it by drag line and cable, or do they float a dredge in there? What's their method of extracting the sand?
Commissioner Lowndes, I believe we would look for the applicant to provide specific details, but it's our understanding that for the first initial 15 feet, it would be excavation in a wet fashion, wet dredging, but not via a drag line that M Ranch was proposing, because M Ranch was entirely a wet mining operation. That after the 15 feet, it would be a dry mining operation with dewatering. But we'll encourage the applicant to provide those detailed specifics for you.
No water leaves the property?
That's the commitment and the statement. In the rare instance that I want to qualify the rare instance, but in the infrequent occurrence where there is substantial rain events, I understand that the property as it exists today and with this proposal would have the ability to discharge a limited amount of water into adjacent canals, and that's part of the South Florida Water Management District evaluation of pre and post conditions with this.
South Florida Water Management controls and monitors that discharge?
Yes, in partnership with the North St. Lucie River Water Control District.
South Florida Water Management's got a lot of power, don't they?
That they do.
What do we do with the overburden?
Commissioner Lowndes, again, the applicant is best equipped to reply, but I imagine a significant portion of that would contribute to the formation of the 12-foot tall berm. Given its
width and the height,
substantial width, 12 feet in height, the grading, that I imagine they would exhaust a significant portion of that, at least the first phase or two. And then in the past, there's been a lot of conversation about trying to put use of all material, including the overburden.
Berm's got to be built before they can start?
Commissioner Lowndes, to that point, they would be excavating on their own site to formulate the berm, but they wouldn't be able to progress to further mining activities, exportation, until that berm is formed and sufficient. But we're not expecting them to purchase off-site fill to formulate that berm. So we would see digging while they're creating that berm in the process.
Okay, thank you. Do we know how far down the sand actually goes? Why do they want to go to 50 feet when we want them to hold at 40?
Chairman, Commissioner Lowndes, as we understand it from the applicant, that's what the hydrological study evaluated, that excavation to 50 feet wouldn't have significant adverse effects on adjacent properties. Therefore, that's the volume and the pursuit of the material. Staff, based upon some of both the soil depths of test indications, just given the dynamics of the surrounding area and even the prior limitations applied to mining activities in the agricultural 5 district, conservatively we're recommending a cap at the 40 feet to help avoid any potential externalities.
Did the applicant share with the county the core samples from their test wells?
Commissioner Lowndes, I know the reports were shared. I don't think they were bringing excavated material to share with us. We do have the county engineer present this evening. Their team, Public Works, they are looking into the specific geotechnical aspects of mining petitions, including what would be a subsequent mining permit requirement. So look for him to speak to.
I would assume that they determined that this is all sand, no marl, no what we call gumbo, but all marl and no shell.
I understand it at least down to the 30 plus or minus feet that the test excavations occurred, that is the case. Sand and not rock or marl.
The ground used to produce some fine grapefruit years ago. The environmental group and their trees, those trees are less than 20 years old. We still make them adhere to the regulations that we have on tree removal?
Commissioner Lowndes, the age of the tree, although it correlates with its size, potentially the quality, the Land Development Code prescribes thresholds based upon sizes. For canopy trees like oak trees, it's a diameter breast height, and usually in that ballpark of 12-inch DBH tree. For sable palms, usually it's a 10-foot clear trunk where it starts to be captured in our tree mitigation requirements. The applicant's proposal is to relocate all healthy trees on to the site in strategic locations. As those cells and those areas are impacted, our staff has been pursuing a commitment of a surety or bond, so we can ensure that they're implementing best management practices, but sometimes all trees don't live through relocation, and so if that's the case and there's a net impact to or a deficit as our equations occur, that they would have to make up that gap for tree mitigation, whether that's a replanting on site, planting in a county park or preserve, or a payment. But there's usually some wiggle room on what trees are impacted versus what you're able to save or preserve on site.
We held the mine that you talked about out on Glacier Cutoff Road. Pardon?
M Ranch?
M Ranch to 40 feet.
Commissioner Lowndes, that was the final prescribed maximum depth of the excavation.
I recall they wanted to go to 50 or 55 also.
Originally 50 feet.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradley.
How many more permits does Stewart Materials have off Indrio? Because they have, I didn't count them all, but probably at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more parcels that they can mine. I mean, that's not even including what they're in the middle of mining.
Chair Benner, Commissioner Bradley, the Stewart Materials facility that you referenced west of I-95, north of Indrio Road, they recently, and when I say recently, within the last 5 years, secured a conditional use adjustment that encapsulated additional cells. Their mining permit has been extended out. So I understand that they have intentions to continue mining for some time. Their mining activities, I understand there's different types of materials, different cells, where they generate sand, rock, and other ingredients depending upon the need for, renourishment of the county's beaches, fill for a standard home or development, or even rock base for a new roadway or similar. Additionally, in that region, although it's not active or it doesn't have current approvals, the county does have a petition in-house for a conditional use permit for mining activities south of Indrio Road and west of I-95 in that north-south latitude there.
In line with Stewart,
Yes.
where it looks like it was once mined before.
Yes. And additionally, recently the Vulcan mine, which is on the west side of Rangeline Road, just north of Becker, the county line, they received a modification to their mining permit. They're in an industrial extraction zone to increase the footprint of their ultimate mine boundaries.
So we have a lot of shovels in the ground, is what you're telling me.
There's, as I'm aware, three approved mines, Stewart Materials, Vulcan, and Florida Rock, which is synonymous there on Rangeline, as well as M Ranch has secured a conditional use and mining permit, and they're in the process of preparing the site. To my knowledge, they have not started excavating for purposes of mining. We do have that petition in off of Indrio Road and then south of Stewart. And from time to time, when we have development projects that have an excess amount of fill as they're excavating for their stormwater ponds and overall designs, and actually I'll get to another active mine. There's what we call mining permit exemption, in which they can pursue an authorization from the county to be able to export that excess material or fill off-site. That's occurred with Ravinia, it's occurred with Creekside, even some other smaller scale projects. And actually, there's an additional mine off of State Road 70 that's had long-standing approvals, I believe, at least since 2012, and there was recently an action by the Board of County Commissioners to extend that period of time and lift the condition. Originally, that mine in particular was limited to delivering or sending its fill only to the widening and construction project of State Road 70, but now that they have greater latitude at that mine off State Road 70 to reach other destinations.
Thank you.
Quick question, the South Florida Water Management STA to the south, what's the route those trucks are taking? Or are they keeping all that, because they're excavating that out, they can't keep that all on site, right?
Chair Benner, I think to a great extent through formation of berms and canals and things that there's a notable amount of that material that has stayed on site. I personally have not observed dump trucks leaving the site in the couple visits that I've made, but because it's a state project, they're not under our particular ordinances for terms of truck routing and specific restrictions. But I imagine that the predominant route is to the south, but there could be various destinations with some development off of Orange Avenue, Kings Highway. If the state was making a deal, that those are potential options, or even state projects. In theory, they could be coordinating with the Florida Department of Transportation as widening of Kings Highway or other things occur if the material was of need. Sand in this area, more limited use than rock and other materials.
And if this was to go through, would there be restrictions that dump trucks wouldn't be queuing on Flume Road adjacent to residential? They would have to queue within the property boundaries? Or would there possibly be trucks queued up down Flume Road right next to some of those residential parcels?
So, Chair Benner, Flume Road from Sneed back to the entrance is plus or minus 12 to 1,300 linear feet. The proposed street section, because they would be paving that within the North St. Lucie River Water Control District's boundaries, would allow for two-way traffic. That level of detail, through the conditional use, you can prescribe and set that standard now through your recommendation, or through the mining permit, because there is two layers. There's primary and even special conditions that can be applied to the mining permits, but it's staff's intent that there wouldn't be queuing adjacent to the residential homes, and there's clearly some geography that can accommodate that, whether it's on the specific petition site or further west on Flume Road. We wouldn't want any staging in the county's right-of-way or adjacent to residential homes.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, do we have anything from the applicant? Come on down.
Chair Benner, members of the commission, if I may, before the applicant dives in, based upon some of the input from Commissioner Gettler, I did take a look at one of the response forms submitted for the address 3355 Sneed Road and signed, dated August 14th. That does appear to represent both parcels on the north and south side of that canal, which, pending verification with our GIS team, would shade that parcel abutting the petition site due north, and it's likely that would cross the threshold of 50%, requiring a supermajority action by the Board of County Commissioners on the conditional use to have an affirmative approval. We'll verify that, but that's what it appears.
Charles Tysinger, owner rep for Pierre Investments. Appreciate the opportunity to come before y'all with this project. We've been going through this process. Through the process, obviously, we've had comments both from staff and from neighbors. We feel done our best to address those. One being the safety of Sneed Road. The owner has, we are going to widen Sneed Road to 12 feet lanes, 24 foot wide, at the owner's expense, which is somewhere around $1 million. Obviously, that'll make it safer for the truck traffic. It'll also make it safer in the long term for the community. We also took our trucks count down by a third in this, so there's not as many trucks. We're also going south out of Flume Road with the truck traffic and taking nothing north. Flume Road will be paved to county standards and will be maintained to address the water or the well issue, the ponds. We've had 2 hydrology reports. Both of them have said that going to 50 feet, that there will be no saltwater intrusion, and there should be no drawdown more than 1.4 feet, which is a normal water table fluctuation in a year's time. We've also stepped back. We've got a 200-foot buffer from the property line. We've stepped back another 300 foot into the site where we will not be dewatering to get further away from the neighbors, so we don't cause that problem. That first cell, we're going to go somewhere around 15 feet, which will give us about 8 foot of water. That'll be a visual, moment by moment, if we have any issues with water. Plus, we're also going to have continuous monitoring at the property line of the water table. As far as the noise, we've got the 12-foot berm going in, landscaping on top of it. The rest of the property, as we go around, as staff said, there's a lot of trees on site. They'll be relocated in a buffer zone, which will help with noise, dust, all that. Piles will be watered. Haul roads will be watered. We also are going to have equipment with sound actuators on them. That way we keep not only the berm, but we keep them a little quieter. And then I guess the only other thing, and there were a couple questions a while ago that I can answer to, but last thing is, we are in discussions with the county to donate this property to the county at the end of the mining period.
Mr. Lowndes.
Can you address your method of extracting? Is it dredge?
Yes, sir. We're going to be using an excavator with dewatering.
But you put a dredge in there and float it?
No, not a dredge, an excavator, a track hoe.
And you're going to dig that down to 50 feet?
Well, with our dewatering, we'll dig it down and we'll move down as we keep it dewatered.
So you're going to have pumps running 24 hours a day to keep that hole dry?
Yes, sir. The closest pump from the property line will be no more than, or will be no closer than 1,000 feet. It will also have sound dampening on it, along with the berm. At the same time, we will be having noise monitoring at the property line by a engineering firm. That way we stay within the noise ordinance limits.
Mr. Chair, there's places in this county you could have heard in the peak of the citrus industry, you could hear irrigation pumps run a mile away. Do you have any ways to monitor or to dampen the sound of those pumps so the residents around there don't have to put up with that?
Yes, sir. There'll be sound dampening on the pump. Matter of fact, in the first submittal of this, we actually submitted the pump with the sound dampening on it, the decibels that it produced. At the moment, I don't remember exactly what that was.
Point that damn exhaust pipe to the west.
I'm sorry?
Point the damn exhaust pipe to the west so it ain't pointing to their house.
There's actually a different muffler they put on it. They put some casing on it and some different stuff to keep it quieter.
Okay. But then you pump the pit dry overnight and dig it during the day?
It's gonna fill back up overnight, yes, sir. You
got
to keep pumping it.
White sand, brown sand?
It's a combination. It's mostly brown sand. There are some very, very small layers of white sand in there, and down about 28 to 32 feet. There is some mixed shelly material, but it's mostly just brown sand.
No gumbo clay?
Excuse me?
No gumbo clay, blue clay?
None in it. We found none in our borings.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ardell.
It looks like the county has a lot of here. Are you agreeable with all the staff recommendations?
I'm sorry.
The county has a lot of conditions attached to this. Are you in agreement with all the staff recommendations for the conditions of approval?
Yes, sir.
You are?
There's a lot of them that we've already responded to.
Mm-hmm.
Still needing a little clarification, but we have answered a lot of those conditions already.
But you're still in agreement with all of them?
The other ones that we haven't answered, we're working on, but yes, we agree to them.
Okay, thank you.
Including the turn lane?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
All right, this is a public hearing. If there's any member of the public who would like to address the board on this agenda item, come on down, state your name and address for the record. And thank you for waiting.
How are you? James Payne. I actually live at 5910 Palm Drive. I'm here on behalf of the Rocky and KP Ranch, which is the property of the west. The one that's probably going to be the most affected by all the traffic and the dump trucks and all that fun stuff that's going on there. If you look at the property right here, you see this big lake right across from the red line, the property line. Can you move that mouse back down? Yeah, right there. If you go just barely east of that, there's a house pad that sits right there. There used to be a trailer, there was a septic tank, there's a power line. That is a house pad that is in the process right now of having a house put on it. There has been no discussion at all from the property or the property of the mine owners about a house being there. The property owner does wish to build a house. She is in the permitting process now. The reason that they are not here right now is because she is a single parent with 2 kids and they're in bed. There are multiple concerns that she has and the ranch itself has. One being the house is going to be there. There is no noise mitigation. Nothing has been mentioned, anything about the property of the west as far as noise, berms, setbacks. I think there were different setbacks at the Board of County Commissioner meetings.
for properties that had houses on them versus houses or properties that did not have houses on them. So there is going to be a house built on there at some point. You said earlier the area is large lot residential area. Mining is not large lot residential area. It's a completely different footprint than what is traditionally used in this area north of Flume Road, which isn't technically a road. It's a right-of-way. It's an easement per se. There are other issues. One would be property values decreasing due to the mine. You're talking about a 3 to 5 year plan with beeping trucks, dump trucks, 200 trucks a day coming down Flume Road, turning onto Sneed Road, and then turning down to 70. Anybody who drives 70 knows that the speed limit is 65 and the cars are driving 75. You got a slow-moving dump truck pulling out onto 70 from there, and dump trucks don't drive all that fast. It's a recipe for a disaster. There is also the dust issue that is out there, and then you guys said that you were going to reclaim it back to natural, but there ain't nothing natural about a 50-foot hole. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roberta West, 3795 Sneed Road, and I agree with everything he just said. What you got to understand also, though, is State Road 70. They're gonna go from Flume to 70, turn either right or left. Correct? There's no turn lane from 70 onto Sneed Road if you're coming westbound. Nobody slows down. I've almost gotten nailed. My neighbors have almost gotten nailed. Now you're going to get a dump truck who's slowing down, and we're going to have a lot of wrecks. The water table ice, it's still a big concern of all of us. I just don't trust that we're not going to lose water, and we'll give you an emergency number, but you know, how fast are they going to respond? Because we rely on those wells. The mining operation 7 to 4, okay, that's fine. When are the trucks going to start lining up? Are they going to be sitting on Flume Road from 4 o'clock in the morning with their engines running? My property borders Flume and the mine property. And again, Sneed has not, I've been on Sneed Road since 1999. Has never been paved since I've been there. We are so looking forward to it getting paved again. Why? So 400 trucks a day can destroy it. I was against it 2 years ago. I still am. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vardish Channakrishnan, 3355 Sneed Road. Could you go back to that, the one where you had red around the property, like whoever opposed it? I just want to make it clear. So the one that is right north of the parcel, okay, I own that one. So I own that, and I did respond because I also own the one on the north of that. So it's 144 acres, so it shows that everybody around is opposing. So I just want to make clear that it's not shaded, but it is part of that same parcel. Okay? So I guess that clarifies that. The second thing is, we obviously moved into this area like 2.5 years ago with the hope that we'll find a quiet place where we could build a house, retire, and all of that. And our plan was to build in that particular location, the one that is highlighted now, because it's away from the road, and we are behind all those different houses. So we want to have private and quiet location to build a house. We already started working with our architect to put the plans together to go for permitting. Now I'm hearing that 5 years I cannot build a house. Not because of my choice, but somebody else making a choice, which I don't understand, because it's hard-earned money that I invested to actually live out here, and I'm apparently being made to decide differently by somebody else, which I don't agree with. And then they also mentioned something about they tested the wells. Nobody came to my house. I don't know if they came to my neighbors' houses. Nobody came to anybody of us to test our wells. Do they even know where the wells are? I don't think so. And I don't think that that's the right thing to make a claim without actually doing something. And then pumps running in the night. Okay, I'm a mechanical engineer. You could put all the mufflers, you will still hear middle of the night, or even after all the traffic dies down, you will hear it. And we are right there. Am I going to call somebody saying that it's loud and I can't sleep? I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to run all night, because even though they kept saying 7 to 4, I actually had a friend visit me. We were talking about this hearing. He said he lives closer to one of these mines. He said the pumps run 24/7. Without that, they cannot mine. And I think the question was asked and you heard that. It's going to run 24/7. And the last thing I had was, when the wells run dry, am I supposed to be without water until somebody comes and fixes it? Is that practical? I don't understand. Because we live there. We don't get city water, right? Even when there's no power, okay, we put a generator and run our well because that's the only option we have. We don't have a different option. So I don't see the practicality of our well running dry and somebody coming and taking care of it like right away. It doesn't work that way, you know that. So with all this, I don't think it's a good idea, and you see that everybody around is opposing this. So thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, I will close the public comment and come back to the board for discussion and or a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lowndes.
Mr. Crow, can you and Mr. Benton address this house that's to the west of it and the fact that we don't have a berm along that to protect them? And it's I think, a discovery that came up at this meeting. Is that correct?
Chair Benner, members of the commission, Commissioner Lowndes, as of this moment in time, on review of our permitting system, we do not have a petition in for a single-family dwelling on the parcel to the west. In July of 2024, our permitting and zoning supervisor authored what we call a non-conforming lot of record determination, in which they assessed the property because it does not feature any frontage, and frontage is defined as bordering a public roadway or having frontage along a private road or street having been constructed to county standards. It was determined that the lot was in that configuration and was not under contiguous ownership of adjacent property or ownership of contiguous property. Therefore, it qualified as a non-conforming lot of record, which under the provisions of the code would allow for permitted uses to be pursued, such as a single-family dwelling, subject to providing a legal means of ingress and egress via a recorded easement that is sufficiently reviewed by the county attorney's office. So that would be a prerequisite as part of the building permit filing for a single-family dwelling on that parcel referenced to the west, that they demonstrate an easement to and from presumably Sneed Road or a similar public road right away.
They'd have to come down Flume Road to get to this piece of property, or could they get it off the north edge of it?
They would have a variety of options. Historically, the North St. Lucie River Water Control District would issue revocable license agreements or temporary agreements, but usually not perpetual easements. And the test of the code, as I understand it, is a recorded easement that provides lawful access in perpetuity. So there's a good chance that the access would need to come from somewhere to the north or northeast. But it's certainly reasonable.
Does staff have any concern over the noise from the extraction pumps?
So Commissioner Lowndes, through our development review committee process, we've tried to cross-check every component. As testified by the applicant, there are sound dampening systems, but also, as we pointed out, the call for a sizable berm with landscaping and the possibility of what we call an acoustic fence that is designed to help dampen sound transfer. So that would be quite substantial in addition to the sheer geography. Now, with the considerations that there might be a home permit pursued for the property due north or even to the west, I think it's viable or it's reasonable to have additional dialogue to find out whether berm treatments outside of the eastern property line and the northeastern property line are appropriate. I will note that how the progression of the mine is set up, they would mine from east to west. As they start to cut into that tree line, those trees would be relocated to a great extent along the western property line and other property lines, so that hopefully would support mitigation and dampening of any noise from the property. But I think some depends upon placement of those pumps, whether those pumps are below, as reasonably at the mine floor in select areas. So there's different options, but that's been a conversation with staff since initial application.
Is it possible for county to monitor that in the beginning? That's the closest portion to the residents, that first dig, that first pit. Can we do that, or is that off limits to us?
Commissioner, what I believe has been explored in the past is, in addition to monitoring wells for salinity and other impacts to water in the area, there could be the request to establish noise monitoring devices at corners of the property or portions of the property boundary that register and account for noise. Of course, there's the challenge of extrapolating the source of that noise and creating a baseline of, if we went out there right now, what kind of noise would we hear? Where's it originating from? Whereas, but to a great extent, I think there's the option of monitoring sound from those sources.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion or motion?
Mr. Chairman, things like this get to be like watching your mother-in-law go over your cliff in your brand new Mercedes. I know that we need the sand in most areas. I know there's mines around that are producing sand. Thank God this isn't in the middle of a well-developed area, but I'm still concerned about the people that do live there from the sound, the water that's there. I'm not comfortable with 200 trucks a day coming down Sneed Road, even though it's going to be widened to Okeechobee. In my heart, I know trucks are going to come south on Sneed Road from, if they're delivering sand in the northern part of the county, do I have to believe that they're going to come all the way to Okeechobee and come around, or are they going to go to Orange Avenue and come down Sneed Road? I don't know.
I mean, I'll elaborate a little bit too. I mean, I don't mind the business aspect of it. I just don't like the area. I don't like the road. The road flat out is just inferior. We talk about this a lot, typically more in town, but this is a very inferior road to put 200 trucks on. I don't know if anyone sitting here has been out to Stewart Materials. Go to Indrill Road and go out to Stewart Materials on a Monday, Tuesday, or pick a day of the week. It is NASCAR of semi trucks, of dump trucks. I mean, it's a dust storm. It's because time is money to them. So I understand there's probably respectful ones in their mix, but it's NASCAR of dump trucks. If this was up near Stewart Materials, I don't think a lot of us would have problems with it. But we are right against a lot of our residents that have been there for a while. Some that may be building on a little inferior of a road. Maybe not a little, a lot of inferior of a road. Again, I don't mind the business aspect of it. I just don't necessarily care for the location of where they're trying to put it.
I wish this was coming off of a portion of an abandoned grove on Carlton Road or off of Sneed Road, but not, of Shin Road. but there's just problems that are increasing on Sneed Road because of the size of it and the fact that it's deteriorating. We're going to rebuild it in 2028, maybe. If we get enough impact fees to overcome some other areas. But I'm like Josh, I don't mind the business aspect of it. I just wish it was someplace else. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Dell.
Motion based on the discussion, public input, motion to deny.
Second.
Motion to deny by Mr. Odell, second by Mr. Neese. So yes vote would mean your vote to deny. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowndes?
Yes to deny.
Commissioner Neese?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Odell?
Yes to deny.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gettler?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Benner?
Yes, ma'am. Motion to deny carries. Again, we are just a recommending body. This will still go in front of the Board of County Commissioners. Their vote is final or has weight to it. We are just recommending. So please show up to that and make your voices heard. Thank you guys for coming out. Do we have any workshops?
Good evening again, Chair Benner, members of the commission. No workshops slated for this evening. I did want to again express our appreciation for the double header that this body engaged in this week and handling the comprehensive plan evaluation appraisal review at last night's meeting, the input and constructive discussions, and of course the commitment to prepare and engage in discussions again this evening. We thank you. And appreciate your continued dedication of time. As an
Thank you much. Do
body.
we have any
Thank you,
other
guys.
any other business?
Movie adjourned.
So moved.
When you leave, big boy.